All right, welcome everybody. This is another podcast with a dev panel this time. I just want to try something different because not a lot of people in the community actually able to hear the voice of devs or know what they go through. All you really hear is the bashing on the Discord and asking why their bots don't work, etc., etc. Mainly it's just user error, but um, I have a decent panel here today. Can you guys like introduce your guys yourself? What do you guys do? What company you work for, and etc. Anybody can start.
I'll go ahead and start. Um,
Do it.
so yeah, my name is Felipe. I have been running Prism with Michael, who a lot of people know, for I think like over 3 years now. We started as like a side project in college, and we just both recently graduated and are doing this full time now. Do you want me to go into any of the other stuff right now, or just kind of go through introductions
Just go through
first?
introductions.
Uh, cool.
Cool.
Okay, I'll go next, I guess.
Do it.
My name is Selm. I'm developing Rettenfanger along with Kima and few other individuals. I'm from Bosnia, which is, I think, pretty rare because most of people don't know where Bosnia is located. I've been developing Rettenfanger for almost 2 years now, and that's basically it for me.
Oh yeah. People call me Pseudo. My Twitter handle Pseudo Shoe. I've been in sneaker Twitter for probably since 2016, 2017 now. Um, I run Guap, which is a big monitoring company. I think we were one of the first big, like highly distributed cook group monitors in this space. Um, we also have a cook group, which is honestly more of a friends and family that's just become a group of like 300 good friends of mine. And I'm
That's
working
a
on
lot
some
of
NFT
friends.
stuff as well. Yeah, it's grown pretty big at this point, but I guess that's the payoff to having been here for a while is everybody likes to stick around. So yeah, other than that, just happy to be here.
I can go next.
Yeah, you can go next.
Yeah. My name's Max. I go by Lunar or Twitter. On Twitter, like Oh shit, I can't talk. I go by Lunar on Twitter and Discord, and I own Tyco, which is a toolbox for botters. I do that part time, and I also go to school part time as well. That's about it.
Hey guys, I'm developing Tricklebot with someone named Z3, and I've been working on it for a year now. Um and I'm glad to be on this podcast today.
Awesome. I think Hendrik said he's gonna be back in a little bit.
Yep.
So since you guys are all developers and everything, what was the first coding language you guys learned? Because when I was in high school, I learned C++, and that was the most terrible language I ever learned in my life. And like six
That's a
years
tough
later,
first.
yeah, then 6 years later, someone tells me like about Python, where like it'll tell you exactly where you gone wrong in your line. I was like, man, I wish like I was in the era where Python started, not C++. But like,
Mm.
what did you what are the languages that you guys learned when you guys first started the code?
I
Do we
think
want to
Java
follow?
was my first. That was a go-to high school computer science, like AP computer science class. Was all Java based. I don't use Java at all now, which is funny. I do a lot of JS stuff, but haven't touched Java in probably 5, 6 years, other than ripping apart Android applications every now and then.
Yeah, I had the same exact thing. I learned in high school, same thing, AP comp sci class, just learning Java with like really basic, typical learning software. I think it was called like BlueJ or something, some like weird text editor thing. But yeah, it was just Java, and now I don't use it ever either.
Yeah.
Same exact boat here. APCS, Java. I also started learning Python at the same time because I could not stand like the Java syntax.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Would have
started
been the
with
same.
Python, which was pretty nice because got garbage collection and all that stuff. Makes it easier.
My
I
first
started with Java also, and I'm actually continuing with it. The bot
Oh,
is written like 90% in Java.
Wow.
So we try to use it whenever we can because we like it a lot. I think there's very few Java bots for whatever reason. I think Splashforce and Supreme are pretty much the only ones I know of.
I think maybe
Yeah.
Zephyr AIO might be Java. I know a lot of their monitors are written in Java.
My first programming language was actually Pawn. It's a programming language for GTA San Andreas multiplayer servers.
Ah, hell yeah.
After that, I moved to JavaScript and C#. The funny thing about my Pawn introduction was I actually just wrote comments in Bosnian, and I was expecting the code to work. Like I just described what I wanted the program to do, and it didn't work. And I was really confused why it's not working.
Amazing.
Hey, since you're here, Hendrix, you missed the introductions. Can you get a quick introduction of yourself?
Oh yeah, sure. My name is Mike, but I go by Hendrix, Jimmy, Future. 22. I used to work for a facial recognition company, and I left in March to pursue sneaker development in general, sort of full time.
Nice.
Wow.
Um,
What was
since
your first programming language?
I think he said
Yeah,
Java
it was
too.
Java.
Yeah.
Yours was Java. Okay.
Yeah.
I assume because when I was in high school, like after C++, like it was either Java or like Visual Basic were the two basic languages. Like I guess everybody learns first. But
hmm
since since coding has like evolved like with so many languages now, do you think like it's easier for someone to pick up coding now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's far more resources out there. So many people open sourcing projects that makes it easy to sometimes even just pick apart people's code and slap something together. And I mean, as Elm said, he was writing a different language at the time, like literally writing in his own spoken language, which is crazy. I didn't even consider the fact that you would have to actually write these languages. They're all served to us in English if we're Americans, so you don't have to consider half of that.
No,
That's
you
a lot
didn't
to think
quite
about.
you didn't quite understand me. You have to actually write a programming language in English, but I didn't have
Right,
any
right,
idea what to do, and I was writing in my own language, expecting the program to understand
Yeah.
what I
right.
want.
That's what I mean. I've
Eh,
never even had to consider that idea because it's just always been served to me in English, and that's my native tongue. So I never even thought to imagine the idea of having to like actually learn a different spoken language to write a programming language. It's wild.
Does so with coding now, like if when you write in your native language, does it still work, or everything has to be done in English?
it actually never worked. Like I didn't even it wasn't a real program.
No, no, no. I
Like
mean currently. I mean with like the current languages, not Pon.
I don't do anything in my native language anymore, to be honest. Like it's so much easier for me to work in English. I've adapted to English so much that working in my native language is almost impossible.
Mm,
It's impressive.
it's pretty interesting.
Thank you.
So, how old were y'all you guys when you like started to code? Because I know a lot of these sneaker developers now are like really either really young, or like in high school or in college. So I assume when did you guys like how old were you guys when you started to code?
I was definitely on the older end. I think, at least growing up in my age bracket, I graduated high school in 2013. So it wasn't super common for many people to be writing code in, as 18-year-old in 2013. There were a few friends. Pudgy Chicken, my partner, was one of very few people I knew that was actually very proficient in writing code. But it seemed like most people didn't really touch it until AP Comp Sci, or maybe a little bit before if you were interested in it. But it seemed like 17, 16 was maybe the earliest you would see it in high school. Nowadays, it's like half these sneaker Twitter devs are, 15 years old. It's crazy.
Or 12? How old?
Yeah, I learned the same time. I was like 16, 17 probably, just taking that course in high school. And then that just transitioned into like college courses and self-taught stuff from there.
Yeah, same here.
pretty much same boat. Except I didn't initially go with computer science in college. Started off as like aerospace and math, like a double major. But I was
Yikes.
still doing Python, and I think it was like my second semester freshman year I switched over. I got bored of calc really quick.
Amen.
I actually started when I was around 10 or 11. I was trying to make something work. I think the first project that really worked was when I was like 14 or 15. It was actually, I have no idea what it was, but it was small scripts for San Andreas, and that was around when I was 14 or 15. Then I moved to more serious stuff. Discord was really good gateway into botting to me.
Speaking of gateway, what were you guys' gateway like that kind of blew up for you guys to like be more focused into coding or like like because like for me like when I learned C++, it was cool and like I love like at that time you like when you did something wrong, like you didn't know which line was wrong, and you had to go through each line one by one, and like I love that, but I hated it at the same time. But then like when I got older, I think when I was like 23, I started like picking up Python and like no learning Python was so much easier compared to C++, and like I haven't pursued coding since, but like I do dabble with it here and there, but like just knowing that like the resources out there, like watching YouTube videos, and there's other like, you know, other people I can just message, and like it's the resources there. It's so much easier to learn. Like, what was your guys' like main gateway? Like, you guys once you guys saw it, it's like okay, this is definitely what I'm going to be doing.
I think it's a rabbit hole for everybody, honestly. That seems to be the way that development takes you on this journey of, you have some random utility you need to create or random solution you need to find, and you just keep going down this rabbit hole until you find it. And that's literally what sneaker botting is at this point, is just being able to dig deeper and deeper and deeper into these holes.
Yeah.
And finding a way to create the solution. I mean, it's the same with where you were in Python recently. I think yeah, all of us just fall down these holes of, man, it'd be cool if I could figure out how to do this. Let's see if we can. There's something on the internet that'll lead me there.
Yeah.
And then we end up here.
Yeah, I think I actually got introduced into like this like sneaker Twitter or whatever. My freshman year of college, Michael and I lived on the same floor as a lot of you. I don't know how many of you guys were around then, but Astrobot, like the old Supreme bot, the owner for that product actually lived on our floor, and he was like, "Yeah, like this is what I'm making." He showed us it, and we were like in the same class, and he kind of showed us it. And so Michael and I started like this as a side project, like I said, as just like, oh, what can we do? I wanted to like get sneakers, so I was just trying to do it for myself. And then, like Pseudo said, we just kind of went down this rabbit hole where we kept building on it, building on it, building on it until it became like what it is today.
Anybody else?
My rabbit hole was kind of like Minecraft and Terraria mods back when
There
I
you
was
go.
like 15 and 16. I was really like crazy about games back then, and everybody was making mods and texture packs and stuff. So I dove really deep into that, and that was kind of like my first time really spending a lot of time programming.
I
I
also.
thought-
Oh, go
Sorry.
ahead.
Sorry, so you can continue.
Okay. I also started getting into like programming with Minecraft. Like getting really interested into it. Particularly it was like hacking on online servers, like cheating. And I had like a really good time doing that. And it's kind of similar to like writing a sneaker bot too, since you have to like write it in a way that you don't get caught, because there's anti-cheats just like how there is anti-bots. And then after I kind of grew out of Minecraft and I went into like browser games. And because back then there was something called Agario, which was really popular. So I would just spawn a bunch of bots into the server, and like instantly take the #1 spot and even get on like leaderboards and stuff. And then someone in a library, a friend, introduced me to Supreme, and then um we use this thing called filler to autofill and purchase. And that worked, but Supreme bots started to become more popular, and then we were pretty much unable to get things anymore. So I downloaded like a free bot, and it didn't really work. So that's kind of where I tried researching to originally write stuff for myself, um, just to buy Supreme, and then it kind of turned into sneakers and what I'm doing now.
It's actually funny that you mentioned that because I know there's a lot of people in this scene that come from like cheats or hacks in other games. I think
Yeah,
it's
a ton.
because what you were saying, like it's a similar mindset where you're like trying to like break some sort of barrier that's trying to prevent you from accessing whatever your end goal is. So it's like I feel everyone who's in this space has that same kind of mindset where you're always trying to like tinker with these firewalls or whatever you want to call them and get through them because it's the problem solving aspect that is really interesting.
Yeah, we don't like to take no for an answer, so we'll just find another answer.
Exactly.
You had something to say?
For me, I was making a Discord bot before the bots were that popular. Like there were no bot accounts; you just had those clients. And one day, my bot blew up and got into 1K servers or something. And then I started making Fiverr, leeching off that bot's success, promoting myself. That's when Kima, or Kima's friend, I can't really remember, hired me to make them a chatbot. Then after that, Kima hired me to make a monitor. And when I saw people post their success because of that monitor, the feeling of creation and feeling of my tool working actually made me want to do sneakers more. It's so much pleasure to see something you've worked on actually work and help people.
Totally agree.
Yeah. So the thing, this is actually a question I came up with it because like I always like wanted to know this stuff. Like, so when you guys come up with your name for your your product or your company, like, how do you guys come up with it? And like, is there like a meaning behind it?
People always ask this question. I think the first time I got asked was by Kasim, who used to do interviews similar to this. For us in particular, it was just a matter of finding something that I always go for 1 to 2 syllables, something that rolls off the tongue easily. And I think 1 to 2 syllables just tends to be easier to remember. Um, so for us, we were just spitballing names, and I was like, why don't we just go with Guap? That sounds kind of cool. And nobody has the handles yet. And at the time, I knew somebody who worked at Twitter who was able to kind of help facilitate us getting a hold of the Guap Twitter handle. Because if you don't know, it's really hard to get a hold of 4-letter Twitter handles. You can't make one anymore. They limited the ability to make them back like probably 8 years ago when they ran out of 4-character Twitter handles. So to get your hands on one at the time was kind of unknown unless you had access to somebody that knew how to get them. Um, so a lot of our naming was based off of what handles we could get on Twitter because that's where you kind of dominate in this space. Twitter is just the place where we all communicate. So if you can stick out on the timeline, it's easier to get picked up and easier to be known. So that was always my motive.
I feel like not a lot of people know that the 4-letter on Twitter is really hard to get.
Yeah, they're tough. They cost a lot too.
There's a large overlap of people in this space that are also like affiliated with like very OG usernames. Something I've noticed.
Yeah. I think that's why I grew up in that like back with OG sneaker Twitter, it was just such a common thing that if you had kind of like an OG username, you were more highly regarded or respected in the space for whatever reason. I guess just to show that you're a true OG. Funny how that works.
How did the rest of you guys come up with your guys' company's name?
Ours was actually, I remember Michael like came back from class one day. I think it was astronomy class, and he literally learned prism as a vocab word in astronomy class. And we were like, "Hey, this sounds cool." And it was like a side project at the time, so we weren't like we didn't really think too much about it, and it kind of just stuck, and it's been like that ever since.
That's amazing.
I kind of forgot where the name came from. Um, I know I wasn't the one that suggested it. I mean, we knew that we were gonna add like Easy Supply, which is known for its splash page, and I think it used to make a sound after you pass a splash.
Yeah.
So I think that's partly where the name Trickle came from. But I know
Well,
we didn't want to include like the AIO that a lot of bots had. We felt like it was kind of like everyone was doing it. So instead of that, we just made it Trickle Bot instead of like Trickle AIO.
Good choice.
Well, specifically for Rattenfänger, Kima came up with the name. It's a German word for rat catcher of Hamelin. It's a tale of a man that came into a city of Hamelin to lure away rats from the city with his flute, I think. But after the citizens refused to pay, he used his magic power to steal their children. It's pretty dark story, but the name sounds cool. So yeah, we went with it.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember this, Elm, but a long time ago, when I first saw Rattenfanger on the timeline, and you guys were kind of your trajectory was booming, I remember calling it out and saying, "This bot looks amazing, and I'm sure it cooks, but you got to work on that name." I think I looked up the tail at the time, and I was like, "Jesus Christ, this is crazy."
Yeah, I remember it through the fade.
Yeah.
I'm not really a Twitter person myself, to be honest.
Yeah, keep it that way. It's easier.
We missing anybody else?
Oh, mine just I forgot how I came up with mine. I think one of my friends said it and it just sounded nice. And the handles were free, so
There it is.
I don't own my own bot. I work like another bot, so I've never like had this issue of branding.
Okay, cool. Oh, what other bots do you work for?
Right now, I work for, if you know the eStock owner, Tony is Fuego,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
working for Vulcan Flips Cook Group,
Okay, cool.
working on a little something. Can't really share like many details,
No,
unfortunately.
you're good.
Yeah,
No need to break any NDAs or anything.
yeah.
So I know a lot of you guys kind of answer this question, but what made you guys choose to work in the sneaker retail botting industry, and how do you like the space? Because I know some of you guys, either did have a full-time job or don't, and like, you know, 'cause I feel like this space is like a very a unique space, especially with the type of clients you guys get, like younger clients, and a lot of shit talking and a lot of like,
Yeah.
but how do you guys like it, and and why did you guys kind of choose like the sneaker retail botting industry?
Yeah, I actually had like in the last year, I had to decide if I wanted to go ahead and pursue a job like in software industry after graduation or go just full time with this. And I know Michael kept telling me like, no, let's just do this, keep going. And he was the one who ultimately convinced me to just do this full time. I was going to try to balance it half half, which looking back on it now, like would never have worked. Just because of how demanding like sites are nowadays and how quickly things change. But I think the way I looked at it was it's a really good opportunity right now that's interesting. Is like I'm constantly like I wake up excited to work on this kind of stuff, and I don't know if I would say the same if I worked at like a big tech company. And at this point in my life, I was like, I'm just gonna take this risk in something that's interesting and I can keep doing for now. And if shit hits the fan and sneaker botting goes down, well, whatever, I'm still young. I can like look for some other industry job. But for right now, I just keep going with this.
Yeah, I think for me in particular, it wasn't necessarily something that I chose, but more something that chose me. It seems like once you get into this community, if you aren't technical, very quickly you start to realize how valuable technical skill is, especially as a developer. So it became more a matter of like, oh, you're my tech friend, or like, you know how to do this stuff. Can you help me out? And that's how I got sucked in very quickly. When I was in college, my freshman year, one of my 6 roommates was into sneakers. He started selling proxies at the time, and he was in House of Cards, I think. And that's kind of my first introduction to all of this, was getting deeper into House of Cards and learning this community. But he came to me one day, was like, hey, do you know how to deploy these servers and run these scripts? I'm trying to sell proxies to people. I was like, what are you selling proxies for? That's kind of like a sketchy thing, isn't it? He was like, no, it's for sneaker botters. Like, they're trying to buy a bunch of pairs, and all these sites have rate limits, so you need to use a bunch of IP addresses. And at the time, he just knew me as like the networking kid, because I was taking cybersecurity at UBC. And I was like, I mean, come on over. I'll try and help you figure out this script. We'll try and get it running. And that's where it took off. We sat down on his laptop one day. We got the script running, and he showed me Discord for the first time. I'd never used Discord at the time. And I was like, oh my God, this is insane. Like, if you have technical skill, you can dominate in this space. You can check out as many pairs of shoes as you want, because you just have to be faster than the other guy. And this was way before we've, really optimized the hell out of this world to be so deeply competitive, and having, probably several hundred different bot developers now. Yeah, I don't think I really chose to get into it so much as I got pulled into it and never looked back.
I think another thing, just going back on your point about how a lot of times we do have to deal with like a younger audience or customers that may, how do I put this, be a little bit more prone to have harsh feedback. I think it's something that you see a lot in this space because you're really close to the customer with like being in like a Discord group. I think in other industries, you might see the same type of like lashing out at like the company, but the company isn't so directly connected with the customer. And that's why we kind of take it more to the face instead of like through a bunch of layers of like customer support or like through different Twitter feeds where it's easier to kind of block out. But again, it's just like it's something you're going to see in every industry where people get upset about things, about products. I mean, you can clearly see it in every other tech product. People like the new Mac, people hate the new Mac, the new Windows, whatever. It's just you're a lot more directly connected with the customer. And I think that actually, yeah, it can be stressful, but it provides a really good way to iterate quickly on things that users actually need and stay connected with them despite the annoying parts that come with it.
Mm. To touch on that as well, I think our success directly correlates with our users' success. So if we push an update and it breaks something and they can't check out, we've inherently made it so that they can't make money either. So they get mad not only because it didn't work, but also because their friend checked out 10 and they didn't, and now they're broke with a bunch of useless proxies in their hands. So there's a lot of when money starts to get involved, there's definitely a lot more emotions being thrown around.
Yeah, but I think that plays into, I mean, what you were saying is our success is directly correlated with theirs, which in a way is actually a good thing because it keeps developers accountable for actually ensuring their product is good because the incentives are aligned, right?
Very much so.
Anybody else?
These young kids are tough, though. I'll tell you what.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
it definitely goes in waves, but you can feel when things aren't good, because you literally just open up Twitter and you'll see people screaming and shouting, or go into a Discord server and everything's on slow mode, or all the channels are locked down. And you're like, oh shit, what happened?
It's only
Something's
tough.
going
It's
down.
only tough during summer.
Yeah.
Once
Right.
everybody goes back to school, it kind of changes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people give this community a hard time for, maybe being younger and having parents' money to spend. And, while that's true, and I think there are certainly plenty of people in this community that did get a lot handed to them and had a lot of additional access to funds or whatever that may be than others, they're still here. And this community, to really be a part of it and to run this software, you do have to have some technical skill. You have to know how to, maybe potentially deploy a server on AWS at the very least. That takes a lot of time. That takes a lot of personal research and a lot of, it's not just a quick, hey, here, download this thing, click start, and you're done. It might have been that way a while ago, but nowadays, I think if you're here, you deserve a little bit more respect, because it does take a lot of work and a lot of knowledge to be successful here.
Yeah, I kind of see that too, because I feel like that's why a lot of bot developers kind of aim for like a simpler UI, and because I notice like a lot of the newer people that do come into the sneaker community, they try to stay away from the CLI bots, because one is like they feel like you have to code, or like they feel like it's too complicated to use. But like once they understand the gist of a CLI bot and like understand how to use it, the skills can transition to another CLI bot. Same thing was like with a UI bot. Like for example, like the first UI bot I ever used was pretty much AIO, and pretty much everything from AIO kind of transitioned to every single other bot for me. Then for me, for my first CLI bot I ever used was Rush, and
Yeah.
everything from I learned from Rush kind of transitioned down. But then again, like once I used Ganesh was like a totally different type of CLI bot, where everything was created on a CSV, then it was imported in, compared to where Rush, where like you kind of just had to type everything out. So I just feel like in this industry, if something's easy to use, a lot of people might, aim towards it more. Because, for example, I know I'm in multiple cook groups, and I notice people always ask if like a group buy, is this bot a CLI bot, or if it's a or not. And if you say it's a CLI, they'll be like, oh, I don't want it. They just never take a chance to to learn it. That's what I feel like, if they just kind of take the simpler route, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it's a natural progression though of like any software or like technical product is people are going to aim towards what's easiest to use, and that is also just part of competition in any industry. Is whatever is easier for the customer is what's going to end up winning. Obviously there's performance built in as well, but I mean, if two bots are performing the same and one is way easier to use, you're going to use that one every time. And I think it's a good thing, because I mean, if we look back like 3 years ago, at least when I first came into this space, UI and UX were barely a thing. Like you didn't really think about that too much, at least not in the depth that we have now with like people adding. I know like Whatbot was the first one to have task groups, and that's something that now everyone has, and it's like the minimum standard. I think it's a good thing that people are paying more attention now to these UI and UX features, because it's just part of competition, and it's our job as developers to make sure that we continue to innovate on this kind of thing. As like you said, Pseudo, like this becomes more and more complicated every time to know how to bot these sites successfully. It's the job of the bot developers to make it easier for the user, not necessarily for the user to become a technical genius.
Right. And also important to consider the reactionary portion of this world that we live in, right? I mean, not just considering shock drops, but I can't tell you how many times I've woken up late or been late to get back to my house to get to my computer. There is something so exponentially more convenient about having a UI bot that you're used to being able to just boom, 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 done, set up task, click run. When you need to quickly change focus like that, it's very difficult to do with a CLI bot at times. You're like, oh, fuck, I gotta open up the CSV and drag and drop all this stuff. It's sometimes just a matter of being able to react more quickly that helps.
Personally, I think working with CSVs is like easier once you get comfortable with it.
Yeah.
I mean, because I might be a little biased, but I don't think it's the end of the world if you don't have task groups or something like that. I mean, I haven't really seen any differences in performance with bots that don't have task groups. But yeah,
you guys have been an outlier, I think, in terms of being a CLI that maintains dominance.
Well, if your bot is well designed, like you can start certain amount of tasks easily, you don't necessarily need task groups, in my opinion.
I kind of agree with trickle dev with like CSV, like CL, because for example, like when I first used Ganesh, creating tasks took less than a couple seconds, and I was like, well, this is so easy, loading it. Then like before Cyber became 4.0, like creating tasks on Cyber was such a fucking hassle because there were so different
Hmm.
many modes, and it was just a hassle. And in my head, I was like, why can't every bot just have like a import task CSV, like
Right.
just a simple import task CSV, because like every bot's built differently, every bot has different modes, and it's just UI is always nice to have, but like when with the like a CSV, like once you have it correct, then you don't have to change certain things like importing and exporting tasks like matter of seconds, and that's one thing I do love about CSV bots.
Yeah, I think a lot of devs probably prioritize UI, thinking that it plays in very heavily into your marketing on Twitter and everything else. People want to see what it looks like. And again, you said, some people will just not even commit to a group buy because it is a CLI bot. Um, I think part of it, a lot of devs will put a lot of emphasis on, oh, look at our UI and all these features. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people that are starting a bot and I've told them, dude, don't worry about all of the complications of task grouping and proxy grouping, all this stuff. Like you can add all of that down the line, but just get something working, stick something out there that can check out. It doesn't have to look pretty. As long as it does its job, people will use it. You can worry about that later down the line.
Yeah, I think, I mean, going back on what you said about CSV being easier for you, I think one, for you as a more advanced user, I can see why that would make sense. I think for a newcomer in this space who doesn't have much technical knowledge, it might not be the same. And as a bot developer, you have to account for everyone that is within your target market. So if you're only targeting advanced users, sure, I think the CSV makes complete sense because you're able to iterate more quickly on your site modules. If you're trying to like target a wider market where everyone can use it easily, I think you need a little bit more UX. But there's a very big distinction between UI and UX that I think is blended a lot in the sneaker Twitter space, where everyone thinks that just having a GUI is a better experience. And that's most of the time it's not the case. I mean, you clearly said it with
Yeah.
Cyber back in the day when tasks weren't easy to make. That means that the GUI actually made things more difficult and it wasn't a good user experience. If you're able to set up Trickle or Ganesh in seconds, that means it's a good user experience because the CSV is laid out in a way that makes it easy to do it. And I think going back on what Trickle Dev said is if it's easier for your users to use a CSV, then 100% that's what you should be doing. And I think ultimately the main goal of a bot should be performance first. But
Hmm.
again, going back on what I said before, I think if two bots are performing the same, most users are going to end up choosing the one that's easier to use, easier to set up, whether that's GUI or CLI. I mean, that's up to whoever the target market is. But I do think that there needs to be a very clear distinction between UI and UX that's very often blended in this space.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with you. For example, like I when I recently used Valor, like when I saw that they have just a release tab and it literally creates all the tasks for you, like I was like, man, why don't other bots just add this with And I was like, seeing that, I can see other bots, in the future adding something like a release tab where you create a task, so easily. But like, man, like if I had that 5 years ago, that was a game changer. But now like all these bots having multiple different features, checkout sounds. For example, when I first used Prism, bro, I was like, this checkout sounds like the best because I had
Hmm.
Ganesh. Ganesh checkout sounds were like they were not the they weren't the nicest sounds. Like it kind of scared me after a while. But yeah, but like little things like that, and I feel like that does keep your customer base, because if a UI UX is easier to use, just certain sounds and just certain features on there, like I feel like that's why a lot of customers stay with certain bots and stuff. But then again, performance does play a huge difference in
Yeah.
in that type of stuff too.
Yeah, I mean the checkout sound type of thing. Those are like little gimmicks. Like we have like nano leaf and like hue integration and stuff
I
like
saw
that.
that.
Those are like little things that we added when we didn't have to focus on performance, right? We were like building out 2.0, nothing had been released yet. The sites were working well, but I mean, ultimately, the main priority is always just sites being performing at the top.
You know, speaking of sites, there was a question asked in chat. What site do you guys hate working on the most?
Foot sites.
Foot sites.
Yep.
I would say Hibbit.
Foot sites are dog shit. Yeah,
Oh,
it's pretty bad.
Hibbit sucks because it's that shit
Foot
sucks.
Like
sites because
manually, I'm getting the same result as I do in the bot, and I'm like, okay, what what can we do here? And
Yep.
like, it seems like even when I reset my IP, it works one time. I mean, it's just a lot of work trying to get things to be perfectly fine tuned.
Hibbit is similar to a lot of other sites with PX where they raise PX up way too high that it even fucks up the manual experience a ton, and even manual users have issues. I know Soulbox in Europe does this also,
Mhm.
and it's just like constantly playing catch up to unban your flow or whatever. I mean, it's just annoying, and the stock is so low that sometimes it's not even worth it.
foot sites has
Yeah, it
no
seems like
idea
most
what.
demandware sites are like that. Snipe,
Yep.
Slam Jam, Soulbox, Hibbit. Those are all demandware backends.
But I think all those use PX.
PX, yeah, it's a
Yeah,
PX
they're all
issue, I
PX.
think. Yeah.
I mean, they brag that it's a machine learning model, but it's much worse than just having like a mathematical system.
I mean, Akamai is technically ML based, and I feel it does a way better job at having a normal user experience. Although bots obviously do hit, I mean, it doesn't ruin the manual experience.
Yeah.
You were gonna say something,
Mm.
Elm?
The main issue I have with foot sites is they don't have any idea what they are doing. Like few drops ago, they had Fastly queue, and when you pass Fastly queue, you get queued. It was so confusing. Like I thought I was getting permabanned or something. Sorry, I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
they
think
don't either.
the Justin from Valor tweeted out something about how Easy Supply devs are like the senior engineers and Footsites devs are the junior devs trying to figure out what to do. And that's like, I couldn't have described it better. Easy Supply drops, yeah, they might be annoying sometimes, but it's like a properly implemented site. Whereas Footsites are constantly trying to change things to make it, I guess, a better experience. I don't think they even care about manual experience anymore. They just care about
They
their
don't.
bottom line and making sure that the site stays up during releases, and it just ruins the experience for everyone. But I mean, I guess it makes them more money because the site doesn't go down during drops anymore.
Well, the interesting thing about foot sites I remember is when there's one hype item, I'm not sure if it's like this anymore, but the whole site gets queued. So if someone wants to buy some flip-flops, they have to wait on the site for like an hour or 30 minutes. And that was just shocking to me. I'm
That
not sure if they still do it though.
that
Yeah,
reminds me
that's
of
why they
Shoe
switched to
Palace.
queue it.
Shoe Palace did that. They queue
Yeah.
if you had like a hype product, they'll queue every single shoe.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm
Well, I
sure
think
that cuts into their profits because I don't think like I feel like Foot Locker would make more money off of their Air Forces than
They
some
do.
Jordan.
That's why they
release.
switched to Qit because Qit is only active on a particular number of sneakers at a time. So the rest of the site still is active and people can buy shit on there.
I
Mhm.
mean, if they tried, they could have modified VCL for the Fastly queue to only work on specific products,
You
but
give
they
them too
just
much credit.
switched the queue.
Yeah, all
Yeah,
of this assumes that they care enough to even try and fix things. I think a majority of these e-com sites that we're dealing with, they just they literally Elmer's glue this shit together just so that it works for when we come and hammer the site for, 1% of their year. The rest of the time they could care less about us so long as we don't fuck their infrastructure up. I think Shopify might be the only outlier there where they actually care and they're actively pursuing and spending money and time and development into maintaining some sort of existence with us. But I don't think the Footsite guys put nearly enough time or effort into this that they actually genuinely care.
I think it also comes back to like the quality of engineers that they have. I mean, the top engineers aren't going to work at Foot Locker, right? The top engineers are getting
Right.
hired to FAANG companies, Shopify, like these big tech companies. And as sad as it is to say it, the not as high quality engineers are going to end up at places like Foot Locker, where it's not a tech focused company that just hires engineers to build out their e-commerce platform, but they aren't necessarily top grads from top CS schools or just top engineers in general.
Makes sense. Um, do you guys bot in general? Any of you guys?
Barely.
Barely.
Slowly been selling all my bots. So I do not touch them really.
I bought
want
the
Yeah.
test
bot.
stuff.
I actually want to bot on Easy Supply sometimes because like some of my favorite shoes are like the slides and the foams. But being a developer requires so much attention during the releases that like I can't, it's just not possible for me to even like start tasks or worry about that. So I have to just maintain, and if there's any changes, I have to be there immediately to do a fix.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I pretty much only go for personals and releases that I know are going to be reasonable stock and good profit. I'll touch them like slides. We were in slides. That was easy, but I'm not going to sit on a foot site queue for 2 hours and deal with, 400 pairs of ones. Like it's not worth my time.
Yeah, same boat. I used to buy a ton, but not as much anymore.
I rent a lot of bots these days, but I just like to look at their UI, see how they're handling like their UI and UX.
Mm.
Same.
What about you? How often are you botting? That's I
Me?
know you have kind of stepped down a little bit in this. At least it seemed that way a couple of months ago that you started to kind of slow down your role with botting. Where are you at now with all of that?
Yeah, I kind of slowed down a little bit. Ever since the whole situation, that happened.
The heat.
The heat. Yeah, I kind of slowed down a little bit. But I'm picking back up. But I don't know. I just feel like someone asked this question earlier. It's like on chat. It's like, do you guys think this industry is dying? I just feel like for example, Wash Cloud posted a perfect meme. It happens every it's a cycle, happens every
Oh
three
yeah,
four years.
Every year.
yeah.
Botting gets super awesome. Everybody hits really high on site. For example, during COVID when Kodai was like dominating foot sites,
Mm.
um, you know, during summertime came, once Mocha dropped, like botting was like at the lowest. Then
Yeah.
it's coming back up. It's just a revolving cycle. So I honestly believe like the cycle right now is it's kind of low, but it's raising back up.
Bearish.
Yeah, it's coming back up. But then again, like there's so many intricate things in the market right now. Like 3-4 years ago, there was no retail botting, and
Yeah.
there was no bots like KSR, Akari. There was like Trickle and stuff like that. There was nothing like that. Like no one ever thought about touching a retail site, you know. And what's like, there's so many things to bot in the market now. Like it's not as bad, but then again, like once this community touches a site, like it's it's like the
Yep.
worst. It's like
Yeah.
you can't get anything anymore. Like for example, like I remember when Rush had Walmart. Like, bro, like you dominate, you get a couple hundred PS5s. Target was fun when KSR was in beta. Now Target's like a hassle to run. Like I just feel like it's just a revolving cycle. I feel like we're at the end of the cycle right now, but I feel like probably quarter 2 of next year, it'll be a lot better. I hope
Yeah,
so.
it happens every year. I mean, Suda, you've been here longer than most of us. You could probably tell us if it happens every year.
I think this year in particular is a special one. I've definitely felt it before where we've basically just picked every last low-hanging fruit possible and it becomes really difficult to bot. It doesn't feel that way right now though. I think we're at a weird convergence of it being kind of difficult to bot and there being so many users that any infrastructure we touch ends up getting hurt by it. But on top of that, it just seems like stock has been so low because of supply. Supply chain's just been hammered over the last 18 months, as everybody knows. But I think we're seeing it especially because I would imagine, retail sales aren't prioritized as much as some of these other high dollar, high profit items that are useful for industry. And Nike is obviously feeling the brunt of that, where we're seeing a lot of drops be delayed or pushed back or less stock making it to the US or whatever it may be. This is definitely an interesting space. And I think it's funny to watch Cyber 5 release and all of the hype going around it, because it's like, man, there hasn't been a ton of hype around Cyber period for the last, I don't know, year. Although it has maintained its value, going back to having a good UI UX, I think Cyber maintained that dominance for a long period of time, strictly because it was an extremely easy bot to use. There wasn't a ton of key stock available, and it was consistent. But it's interesting to see where this will all start to shift now that supply chain is figuring out a way to recover, and all these stores figuring out how to get stock into the country in other ways other than these larger ports.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that like stock in general is pretty low. Like that's kind of the reason why I kind of stepped away from like foot site botting in general. It's just like I don't think it's worth it at the moment for someone like me and to like dedicate so much time and resource into it, especially with PV at the moment. Everybody loves PV. Like
Yeah.
something you can't avoid. But like 3-4 years ago, foot sites would be everybody's go-to. Then it was like Finish Line, Easy Supply. But now people with 3DS on Easy Supply, people are like avoiding Easy Supply because they know certain cards don't work. Then you have foot sites like PVs. You even have Target where like certain products are only like red card only. Like they're I know they're trying to combat a lot of like botting. Like I don't know, like some like I'm not a developer or anything. Like I just I run bots and I do have a technical background. But sometimes I do look at like when I do bot, I'm like I feel like they do try to negate botting, but like I don't think they think in like a botter's aspect. They think in a corporate aspect, as in like
Right.
and that's what kind of messes it up for the experience for everybody, not just botters. So
Right.
like I know like I don't know. I just feel like botting's fun. I'm never gonna stop doing it. Like to me, botting's like how people get endorphin rush when they get like a like on like Instagram, or like for me every checkout, every webhook, that's a rush for me. Like I just
You
like
run
seeing
for the webhooks, baby.
yeah, I run for the
Yeah.
webhooks. Like
It's all
I,
about the webhooks.
I just love it, and like it's fun, and I'll definitely never step away from botting. But I don't think this industry is gonna die anytime soon. I just think it's just gonna get harder. You're gonna people are just gonna have to be more technical. Um, there's plenty of resources out there. To me, it's like a developer um, is a problem solver, and whenever they see a problem, like they're definitely gonna do their best to solve it. And I feel like developers just loves problems because like they just want to keep solving nonstop because it's just another step for them because if it's harder, then it's more fun to solve. That's how it was for me when I was like learning the codes. Like if I couldn't figure something out, I'll spend 3 days, nonstop. And once you figure out, you're like, oh yeah, that's fucking awesome, accomplish. And I feel like that's how a lot of developers are too, especially in the sneaker industries. Like once if it's something hard to tackle and you figure it out, like it's accomplishment, especially when you see your user succeed from it, because like it reflects on your company and also reflects on your users. But like I said, I'm just a botter, so I,
Well,
I
you still feel it. I mean, I'm sure you have access to plenty of software yourself, and it's very easy to recognize, like, wow, nobody's hitting. Like, there's nothing in checkout logs. Something's definitely broken or something's definitely changed. So there's that aspect too.
so let's say
I think one good thing
go ahead.
Oh, I think one good thing is that Yeezy hype is kind of coming back. For a
Yeah.
while, everyone was like, "Oh, Yeezys are dead," and like blah blah blah. But now, like some like 350s, I think there's one releasing October. People are actually excited about, and they're pushing the foams and slides, which is great. Um, but I guess one thing that it kind of stops people that it didn't really impact many back then was like proxies. back then,
Yeah.
a proxy was a proxy. Like there was really nobody really bought Resi unless if it was for Nike to get multiple like entries or IP addresses. But now there's like a proxy for your CAPTCHA, there's a proxy for whatever, and you pretty much have to use Resi for every site that has bot protection. Um, so yeah, I do think that proxies will get more and more strict.
Yeah, I feel like that too, cause like, what was it when I first started botting with AO and SoulSlayer, you didn't even need a proxy. You can literally just run the same local host on Nike. Then like I think like a year or two later, I think in like 2000 like 15, 16 is when like all these other like random proxy companies popping up, and this is when I was newer, and I didn't know majority of these were just like squid proxies from like AWS or Google, and that's what people were just reselling. Like, oh, these proxies are awesome, they work on, but everybody's reselling the same thing. But like,
Back when DCs would dominate. God,
yeah,
bring back those days, please.
yeah, everybody's just using DCs for everything. So I just feel like this space is a little bit different. It's harder, and I feel like it's harder for people who come into the industry, because I know, like, for example, Felipe, when you guys have like newer users, like brand new users that come into the space, like I
Yeah.
assume like you get a lot of questions. They're like, oh, how come my proxy's not working? Why
Oh
can't I?
yeah.
And like I'm and it's hard. Is it hard for you to explain to your users, like, you have to use this specific type of thing, and like only this works for this site, this works for this and this.
Yeah, I think it's definitely become something that's been part but like you were saying, like before you just needed a bot that worked.
Mhm.
Now you need a bot that works, proxies that work, good profiles to not get PV'd. And it's super easy to go and just blame the customer, the user for not having the right ones. And it's easy to say, oh, just go ask your cook group. But I mean, at the end of the day, your success is directly derived from your user success, like we were talking about before. And I really do believe that it's the job of the bot company to provide as many resources as possible to help their users hit. So if that means the bot company itself, whether it's the support staff or whoever, doing the research to find out who are actually the best proxy providers. Um, I think that that is becoming a little bit more of the job of the bot company nowadays. Depending on obviously what your target market is. Again, going back to like if your target market is just extremely experienced bulk runners that are going to be running these crazy setups, then maybe you don't have to focus as much on guides or release guidance or anything like that. But nowadays, a lot of these bot servers kind of look the same as cook groups. They offer release guides, they have proxy provider channels, and give a lot more guidance during releases for again like these bots that like us that target a wider market, both newer and experienced users. So it again goes back to the point Sudo was bringing up about how you need a lot more technical knowledge nowadays. But I think the burden should be on the bot companies to kind of have standards or processes set up to introduce these new users in the space to what are the proper ways to go about things, what are the proper accompanying products to buy, like proxies or whatever. Um, but yeah, I think it's ever changing, and it's on the bot companies to continue to adapt as well.
Yeah, I definitely have noticed that. Like when I first started botting before, it was like, oh, create tasks, get SKU or link from cook group, this and that. Now like every single bot, now in the industry is like they'll have step by step like Sesame Street style guides where like you cannot do anything wrong, if unless you skip a step. Then even if you do skip a step, at the end of most of them, there's a video guide where like literally step by step video. I noticed that like every single bot in this industry kind of like moved to that to make the experience better for a lot of users. And like I loved how a lot of you know companies have adapted to that, because before like you would have to rely on your cook group to make guides on a certain bot. Then you have to rely on them to like explain to you how to use a bot. But now majority of these um bots, like for example, like Trickle, I seen it happen before. Like once they got like a bunch of users, they'll have like a voice chat explaining to users how to use the bots and stuff like that. And like before, like 3 4 years ago, 5 years ago, you would never see that in any bot industry. It was like you bought the bot, oh, read the guide. Oh, ask your cook group. They know the answer. So, do you guys feel like something like that in the industry now helps a lot of the user base?
Absolutely. And that probably touches on, us talking about the age of or the demographic of this community as well. Um, if you aren't technical and don't have that background and you've heard like, oh yeah, man, you can make a ton of money if you just resell these things. You just need a couple $1,000s and a nice PC, figure it out. Uh, those people need the resources for sure. Um, and that's probably a lot of bot devs deal with that, just 24/7, all of these support questions and everything that stacks up with having to have moderators. It becomes a lot of people to support if you're successful because there are so many people asking questions. I think part of that plays into the UI UX conversation with Felipe though, is you can write a bot that doesn't really need a whole lot of research to figure out if you're used to some of the lingo and terminology that we use here. But yeah, obviously now that we've stepped into dealing with proxies and everything else, it's gotten far more technical.
So let's say hypothetically, that you guys don't work for your company right now, and you got a chance to work with any other, company in the sneaker industry. Who would it be and why?
Mm.
I'd want to work at Guap. No,
Great answer.
in truth though, I think there's very, not to call out other people, but I think there's very few established proper companies. I think there's a lot of really good products run by one or two individual developers, and I think that's really, really cool. I think, for example, Wrath is run just by Jason, or has been run just by, not just by, 'cause I don't want to throw shade at anyone, but mostly by Jason for however long it's been, 3 years now also. And that's incredible. But I think in terms of established proper companies with like proper processes and entire developer teams, I think there's very few. And I think just from what we've talked before, Sudo, I think Guap is one of the few companies that actually has proper practices like that. And it's something that I find really interesting. And a lot of people find more interesting just working in a team of one or two developers and cranking out software. But me personally, I enjoy working on a team that has processes and documentation and that kind of stuff. Just kind of having these industry practices.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same. I need at least a little bit of confine to do things right. And that's been our bread and butter since day one. Is we're going to do it the right way the first time, and our focus is always going to be maintaining consistency rather than quick changes to appease the masses.
Who would you work for, Sudo?
I was just saying that honestly, Prism is one of those that they were looking for people. Luckily, they found somebody far more experienced than myself to help them figure these things out.
I
I
think
think Peachy Pings is a great company. They have an awesome team. I love Curdy. I've been good friends with him for a long time. Good friends with him in real life. They have a huge following, and it's nice working with groups like that not only have the money to do the fun things, but also the experience and the team to work with. Because nothing is more sad than getting into a Discord server thinking it's a huge opportunity and it's quiet, nobody's really doing anything. Like, man, I thought this was going to be so much fun, and nobody's even a part of the process. So yeah, it's definitely more fun in this community, in this world in particular. It's far more enjoyable when you're actually working on these projects and these problems with somebody else. It can be really exhausting and demeaning otherwise. So shout out to all you solo devs out there. You guys are fucking something else.
I like AYCD, like the team
Oh
behind
yeah,
that.
another good one.
I mean, like captchas have always been kind of interesting to me. Um, and I know that they are in Java, which I really like. Um, but like for a bot company, I would say Baylor is pretty cool. Uh, both like their PR and their devs are extremely friendly, and really knowledgeable and smart people. And I think it's always good to surround yourself with smart people. So you're like constantly learning.
Yeah, that's a big
If-
point of when sorry to interrupt real quick, but when we go to hire someone new, we're always looking for people that are smarter than us to just teach us different things. So we just um, outsourced some stuff to someone who's really experienced in infrastructure things because we're not as experienced in it, and we learned a lot from it. Because as like a small company, you don't really have the time that these big corporations have to onboard junior developers or anything like that. So you have to hire someone that's smarter than you that can actually teach you a lot of things or take over the things that you're not as good at. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry for interrupting.
I think I know you guys. I personally know the person you guys just hired.
I mean, for which role? Because I was talking about we were doing just some infrastructure rework, and it was just kind of like outsourced contractor work.
Yeah,
But we also just hired another contractor to do like project management part time.
project management.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a very knowledgeable person.
yeah.
What about you guys? Elm, Lunar, Hendrix.
If I had a chance, I'd personally work with PD. PD owner is a really cool person and has helped me and Kima a lot during our journey. And I've had a chance to talk with their team, and they're all super cool and friendly, especially M1 because he's British. And I know he'll flame me for this. Other than that, I think Prism would be fun to work at because I just learned one of their developers is Croatian, which surprised me a lot.
We have a Croatian and a German. Shout out Europe.
Europe #1.
Think I would probably go with Stellar in the early stages, and not so much on the product itself, but when Stellar was initially blowing up, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Thermal, I believe, was the only dev or coding like 90% of it. I'd love to know like how he was managing so many sites. He was rolling out like working features very fast. I know there's some controversy, but like
Yeah, you probably don't want to know.
yeah, I mean, I don't really want to get into that, but I just love to know his
No, no, no.
workflow and how he was so efficient.
You know
Yeah,
the
there's
funny
definitely
thing
some
is,
controversy there.
I was gonna have a surprise guest today, but he wasn't comfortable coming. But I was gonna have crap. What is his name?
Morn?
Huh?
Morn?
Yes, I was gonna have Warren.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a tough one for me. I think I'm too good of friends with too many people to find some way to connect with that guy, unfortunately.
Yeah,
That's just me
I feel
though.
like
I've always been very against the world of cracking in particular.
I feel like a lot of people in the industry don't like him, but then again, they think he's like a martyr. But then again, like for me, a martyr's, you know, he left a while ago. It was Soul Martyr, and he hasn't been in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
he hasn't been in this space in a while. But like, I think he's pretty high in the corporate world from what I've been seeing. So, um, but yeah, I was gonna bring him. I thought it would have been like interesting, but I didn't know how everybody was gonna react. So I'm kind of glad it didn't happen.
It would have been a fun conversation.
Yeah, it would have been
Aside
interesting.
aside from cracking, I think Morn is a cool person. I've talked with him for
Yeah.
a few times, and he's actually really cool to talk with. But aside from his job,
Speaking of that,
Yeah.
I remember like 3 4 years ago there was a Discord created just for devs. Is that thing still active? Where like you guys kind of expand on like sites and exchange information? Is
People aren't supposed to know about that, bro. No, I'm joking.
What server?
I don't
Yeah, a
remember.
few of those exist.
Yeah, because
There's like the open
Yeah,
one
there's a
that has
bunch.
like people can like anyone can join, and then there's the one that Anders started a while back, and then that one I feel like people don't talk that much in that one because that one's more of like quote unquote like top bots, and so people don't like giving away their secrets and talking that much. Whereas in like the sneaker dev Discord, it's like a bunch of newer developers getting into the space, so people tend to collaborate a lot more on there. And then I would say like amongst like more established bots, people collaborate a little bit more in DMs just because they don't want everyone knowing what's going on. It's more of like 2 or 3 bots help each other out here, another 2 or 3 bots help each other out there, but not like everyone helping each other out.
Yeah, that's why you might see like 3 or 4 bots in particular that tend to continue to do well on foot sites. Those guys are hanging out.
Networking. I noticed that.
Yeah.
Networking is kind of a big thing in the industry. For example, I don't know if this. I think this is public knowledge, I guess. So, for example, Justin from Valor, like
It's about to be.
I guess Justin from Valor, he helps out Jason, and like he doesn't
Right.
just help that. But then again, there was another person that was supposed to join this call. It was Pristine, and like I
Mhm.
see him like everywhere, and I feel like I don't know if that's like a thing that like they just help out here and there, or um I don't know, like sometimes like I do have questions that I wanted to know, like do you guys figure this stuff all out by yourself, or like you guys get help from some other company, and you guys kind of just like do like a quid pro quo, like, oh, I know how to do Shopify, let me, and I'll trade my
Right.
Shopify secrets for foot site secrets, so
Right. That definitely exists. I think there's a lot of back alley selling of information. And a lot of devs will get stuck in this scenario where they're like, shit, I need to push an update for a really big release tomorrow, and I still don't have a proper bypass, or I just can't figure out how to miss cache. Sometimes that ends up with you sending somebody $20,000 so that they can give you a single line of code to fix your bot. I mean, it sounds crazy, but I think that's a lot more common than we like to talk about, in just being able to gain access to information, which is what this entire community is founded on. Just having more knowledge than the next guy to compete. That's how cook groups started, right? And it was always a huge thing back in the day, like don't leak, don't leak, don't leak. But nowadays it seems like one thing makes it into a cook group, and it makes it into every cook group because there's so many of us at this point that things move like crazy. But back in the day, if one group hit something big, you knew that they were special and had access to that information because nobody else would. And it wouldn't get shared because you would get caught out and lit up by everybody in Twitter. Uh, but things are definitely very different now that it's so difficult that you almost need a team of other devs that have been staring at the same stupid endpoint for 10 hours trying to figure out which header you can use to bypass cache or whatever it may be. Yeah, it's no more low hanging fruit has created a lot of problems.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like normal networking, right? Like you'll meet someone and you'll help them out with something, and you're
Mhm.
not expecting them to help you in the future, but they do anyways because you've made that connection and you have that relationship now. I know, like, I talk every single week, multiple times a day, multiple times a week with Jason from Wrath, and we've helped each other over the years. Like I've known him for years now on just like small things or even big things. Like I know in the past we both have looked at Shopify together and been like, all right, let's talk about this and figure out what the hell we can do. Or it's just been something like, hey, can you help me with this? And the other one will just help them out because we know in the past I've helped him with something, so now he's helping me with something. It's just like normal networking, and like you said, this whole space runs on information, and if you have those connections, you have that information, and it's really beneficial.
Sometimes also it's not about something being difficult, like with easy supply. If a drop only lasts 10 minutes and you can't make it through queue, like if something changes and you're going manual, then you might need to like phone a friend to ask them like when you got through queue, was something changed.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, that too, for sure.
like personally, I'm never able to pass a splash, so I have some friends always enter for me.
Yeah, that splash is a real bitch.
Do you guys? All right, I guess I want to change this around. Like, so first off, do you guys work outside of the sneaker community? And if you guys don't, where would you guys like to work at?
Shopify, probably. Shopify 2 years ago.
Rip
JM. Yep.
Yeah, bring back Jean Michel, and I'm happy.
I think
Yeah.
I'd probably end up at some like California company just working like a junior dev position right now. I like most of my friends that were in my CS classes just ended up working at some random ass Silicon Valley company. I probably would have just like followed in their steps, but I think, like I said before, this is a much more exciting and cool opportunity.
Personally, I would work for the government, like doing like a government job, because I feel like it's kind of the opposite of what we have here. Like working for the government is kind of stable, relaxed. You like get a few sick days, um,
All
like
right,
like vacation.
I'm gonna hold you off right there. All right. So I
Oh,
work for the
okay.
government, and I want to tell you the government. I come from like a line of, I'm a first generation in America, and majority of my family members in first generation are like doctors and nurses and stuff, and pharmacists. Then the people that came to America like excel very well coming to America, so like they work for like Intel, Microsoft, example. So I get a lot of shit, you know, working for the government because they call it a laid back job. For example, as in like the quality of life of a if you worked as like a developer in the government, there's no stress, there's no micromanagement. Like the chance of you getting fired is not showing up to work for 30 days. You like type of stuff like that compared to the private sector. If you work for some well-known company, if you made a mistake on a script here and there and you get yelled at, you can get fired. And the government, like, yeah, that doesn't happen. The pay is not nice, but the benefits are. So think carefully.
Yeah, that pension, baby.
The pension is nice, but like, I know a lot of people. Like, for example, I didn't think about government as my career. Like when I came out the military, I was like, I want to learn coding, I want to learn cybersecurity, I want to work for some like Fortune 500 company and make some like six-figure job. And then I realized like the stress. Like I'm pretty sure all you guys deal with, in your guys' own space, like owning a company, and the stress is enormous. Like especially
Yeah.
if you don't have an overhead, like a boss that micromanaging you. Like I couldn't deal with that. Like I
Yeah, sometimes it is stressful not having that structure where you're like, shit, if we don't do well, that's on me. And like if I don't pay myself this month, that's on me, not, that's not on the business that I work for or the government that I work for. That's the added stress that we have. But for me, at least, I have a really hard time when I'm not waking up every morning doing something I'm excited about. And that's what this community has brought me every single day, minus maybe a few when Shopify makes gigantic changes to their GraphQL endpoint. Knock on wood, but there is something very important in my eyes about waking up passionate about what you do. And I don't know that I could ever find passion working for the government in that capacity. That being said, I think private sector is the same. My girlfriend works for Google. She's been there for just about a year now. She is absolutely stressed to the nines, does not catch a break. Granted, she's in sales and she's never done sales before, so it's a whole new learning curve. But those companies are all top tier employees, all big college kids. Everyone's either some Ivy Leaguer or some high end private school, and it's a lot to compete with when you're at the top of the top. Especially in development, I'm sure it's even worse. But yeah, it's
I
it's
think
definitely nice working for yourself sometimes.
one thing in those big FANG companies is it may be stressful, but it is to what Trickledev was saying is it's really nice and interesting to be surrounded by such smart people all the time. 2 summers ago, I did an internship at a big company, and although it wasn't like my thing, like I prefer the startup vibe and just working for yourself, I do see the appeal of going to work at a company that one has a huge impact in the world, like many of these FANG companies do. And two, you're just surrounded by smart people everywhere and you're constantly learning. So if you have that, like that appetite to just learn all the time and build cool shit, I think a lot of these FANG companies are really good options also.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting point you said there about impact, though. It's one thing to work for a company that has large impact, but when a company has large impact, their employees have little impact sometimes. I've
This is true.
noticed that. Maybe that's just Google in
100%.
particular, but they seem so big that it's very hard to stick out, and it's very hard to feel like, oh man, I just did something really cool for this company. Those opportunities are very far and few between, and when they do happen, it's tough. But
Agreed. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
I
easy to
agree
get
though.
lost
There is
in the,
a huge impact that you can work for those companies and make a
yeah.
difference, which is fun.
Yeah, sorry to cut into you, Trickle Dev, but yeah, I don't know. I always hear people like to like speaking of government. Yeah, it's nice and easy job. Benefits are nice. Just the pay isn't the greatest, but the overall QOL of life is like the best. Because
Yeah.
I tell all my friends like they I didn't finish college and I have no degree, but like everybody that I know that's in the IT world, like I make as much as them or more, but my QOL of
Mhm.
life is like I'm not in a meeting with India every night. I'm not in a meeting, at random ass times. Like I my I'm pretty much have can't say I have a stress free job, but like I have a very low stress job, and I feel like
Yeah. That consistency too.
yeah, and I feel like I can't. I feel like I can't do botting if I work for like a private sector, and because like one I'll be consistently working 24/7, because like I know that I can get fired any moment.
Do you think that is more apparent now that we've been, largely remote over the last 19 months? Or do you think you feel that way even back in 2017?
So for me, I never really considered remote, um, but ever since I started remote, I honestly want to go back to the office because I feel like I don't do as much. I don't do as much as I'm not as productive as I am when I'm at home. When I'm out in my office, like I know, like you know, with like a government, internet, can't use Netflix, can't use YouTube, can't
Mhm.
Discord, you can't do any of that stuff. Like I'm not gonna, I'm gonna be focused doing my job. I have random people come in my office asking questions. When I'm at home, like yeah, I have my work computer on, like, but I'm like watching YouTube or I'm doing something. Then like once you're like, for example, like I binge watched Squid Game. I was like, I could have been doing something productive at work, but like
Right.
this, I don't know. I just feel like I'm just I'm just a type of person that I can't multitask like that. And if I, coming from the military, discipline, like when I'm at home, like I'm not disciplined. Like I'm just, it's just, yeah, it doesn't work. Like I just feel like I need to have something structured in my life. Like, oh, I have to show up. I have to be at work at 9. Stay at 9, then like I'm there. Like, when I'm at home telework, 9 is turn on the computer and like mope around at home.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. A lot of people, I've technically been remote, I guess. I mean, I've worked for myself since around 2017 before pandemic and all of this stuff hit. And I remember when we went into like the first 2 weeks of lockdown, um, my girlfriend being all excited, like, oh man, we're in like remote work. This is going to be fun. And then it kept going, kept getting pushed. And she's like, you know what? Honestly, I like this. Like, it's really nice being able to work remote. I can kind of pick my schedule. I can eat breakfast. I don't have to worry about commuting, all this stuff. But now she's hit the same point as what you're saying, where it is nice to have that structure. And some people really rely on that structure of, tell me what to do. I'll sit down at my desk. I'll do these things. I'll bang out these tasks, and then I'll go home and make dinner. She misses definitely working around people and working with a team. You don't feel as collaborative, over FaceTime.
mhm.
So it's interesting to see how everybody transitions their feelings in that regard. And I think a lot more people are starting to realize, man, it'd be nice to be back in the office and not have to have 30 meetings a day on FaceTime or on Google Meet or whatever it is.
So some of you guys didn't get the answer. Like, what company would you guys like to work for, or if you guys do work outside of the sneaker community? What do you guys do?
I don't have anyone specifically. I would definitely lean towards like startup. I've been really interested in like crypto, as I imagine like most of you have recently become. There's a lot of really good crypto startups like popping up around New York, but the old company I used to work for had about 60,000 people. So like no one really has any skin in the game, like in particular. And especially as a junior dev, like your commitments really they barely make an impact, especially like when you're just starting out versus a startup or like a small team in general. I feel like you have way more impact with your work.
Yeah.
I currently don't do any work outside of Tycho besides I'm a full-time student, so I do that as well. But if I was gonna work anywhere, I'd probably go for the startup scene.
What about you, Elm?
Uh, I'm just a student. This is my first year of college, and I honestly don't have an idea what I would do. I'll probably do a startup, like e-commerce website or something like that. I wanted to make my own e-commerce website or framework for a long time now, but I don't have any time to finish it. It's really fun to do something like that.
So this,
Do it.
yeah. So this is a question that I didn't have written down, but it just kind of popped up in my head. So like I noticed that you guys did, mention, other developers and like, in the community, like who do you guys normally like look up to and when it's for example, like um when it comes to like a task or something, like someone would help you or like somebody is in the sneaker the sneaker brain fart space, like which developer do you guys like look up to, like, or like you feel like someone that's accomplished something really well that's not yourself?
Lucas, for
Yeah, I was
sure.
gonna say Lucas also. I think he and his team pioneered a lot of what sneaker botting is today. They like set an example. Lucas and Wolf are both incredibly talented, and I think they set the standard for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Probably be Sneaky and Alias for me. Just
Mm.
Noah bot's been my favorite bot to use for like the past four, or I guess maybe like 3 years. And they've been really successful. So probably those guys.
I'd say cyber devs because since I joined this scene, the top level of botting was cyber. And whenever you think about something great in this scene, you think of cyber because they were the first, they maintained that level, and they were at the near the top mostly. So I think that I look up to them.
Agree with that as well.
Crazy.
I think I'm kind of like a startup business nerd also. Like I've been trying to move away from a lot of the programming side of things, and I look up to the cyber team a lot from a business perspective as well. I think they've created a brand loyalty that is unparalleled in this scene at all. Just to see how people reacted today to the launch, despite, like we were saying, not many releases recently, their performance hasn't been what it used to be in terms of dominance. And just the fact that people are still so excited about it shows that from a business perspective, they built up this brand loyalty and this reputation that isn't really like it's not really as important in this scene because obviously performance dominates everything. But if you look at like any other industry where you're trying to see what startups are succeeding, it's usually the ones that are building a lot of this brand loyalty, and I admire that a lot from like a business perspective as well.
Yeah. I think a lot of that plays into their reliability as well. Like you know that if they ping us and say, "Hey guys, run this mode tomorrow," it's like, "Oh shit, I'm definitely running that mode
Yeah.
tomorrow." Like you have full trust in them to be able to click start and things aren't going to completely shit themselves, which is honestly really important for me most of the time because when I do run, it's only for small stuff. So
To add on to that, this is not like directly a sneaker bot at all, but in terms of like following business mentorship, I would say Scout, like the way they've executed has been like very respectable. I've only spoken to Truman like very briefly, but the way he's gotten VC funding, the way they roll out updates, I think is like very good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Truman
another solid
has
team.
Truman has helped me a lot personally. I always DM him for more of like business tips or tips on how to run a team effectively. We're currently working on another project, and it's been hard to manage more developers in general. And I think him and Anton, I think, was the CTO. Just talking to them about how they manage their team has been really interesting. That's another like really good team to look up to from a business or a management perspective.
I think the two developers that I look up to a lot are Justin from Baylor and Awan Force. I
Mm.
don't actually know if I'm saying it right. Um, but I mean, they're both pretty cool, and they've actually been in the community for a really long time, I think longer than I have. So not just with like development stuff, but like with personal things, they even like give me guidance, and they've always like been really helpful and friendly about everything. Um, but like business wise, I think AYCD is probably the strongest business in the sneaker community.
By
Like
far.
this is an opinion, but I think like many people would agree. Um, like a lot of people or a lot of companies have tried doing something similar to them, but like I guess the connections and like the brand loyalty and everything about it just makes them really strong.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people look up to Jake and his developers.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
That's
A lot of people.
another interesting thing that people don't talk about much is just getting integration for certain features
Oh yeah.
is really tough if you don't have friends that are high up in the developing scene to say, "Hey, I wrote this thing. Can you add it to your bot so that it can support it?" It's just not going to happen. Like if people don't care enough about you or you don't have an IOU, that feature won't get added to their bot. And luckily, Jake was so quick to jump and dominated that scene that everyone's obviously going to say, "Yep, we're going to add that. We're going to add that," and they don't even bat an eye.
Yeah, his take on how he runs it is really interesting. I don't know where I heard it. I don't know if he tweeted it or it was in another podcast or something. I remember he said the way he runs it is he just adds features that he personally would want to use. And I think that's a really important thing is to put yourself in like the shoes of like the customer and actually
Mhm.
add what they care about. A lot of times developers get lost in the problem solving thing and just tunnel vision on developer stuff. And it's really easy to say that a bot should be run by a developer and not just outsourced or hired developers. But when it comes to tools like that, I think it's more important to have a proper project manager that actually understands the customers than to just have developer that tunnel visions on certain things.
Yeah, very valid point.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Jake has a huge impact on a lot of stuff. So, like, for example, I think it was like 2 years ago when I found out like gift card was the anti PV
The
method.
loop.
So I I tried messaging like certain developers and like at that time like no one knew who I was, like no one cared. So I was like, man, I need someone who's like known, like a big voice. And I messaged Jake. Next thing you notice, Dragon adds it, Kylan adds it. Slowly all these other bots start to add. And I was like, thank God, like someone listens to somebody or like back like I really like how someone can have that impact on like how something like that can change because like if no one ever mentioned anything like that, I don't think none of the bots would have like added gift cards or gift card type of features.
He's
So
an influencer.
yeah, he's definitely an influencer. Yeah, so like
Yeah.
I definitely glad that like I was able to get in contact with Jake and like and me and him are good friends. So someone like him is like definitely well spoken in this industry.
Yeah.
There was a question that was asked in chat. I'm not sure if I'm asking this question is correct. What are the legal and ethical side of developing a gray area software product?
Yeah, I saw that.
That's interesting. We actually talked to a lawyer about this last year. Um, it's really, I don't think it's a gray area and that people don't really know how to legislate it or like it hasn't really been talked about other than tickets. And from a business perspective, there's very minimal risk if as long as your users are the ones running the software on their computers and not you running it on your servers. The moment it becomes something like a cloud bot where it's all running from your servers, you can be held legally responsible for a DDoS attack on the site, because if the site goes down and it's because of your requests, you can be held liable, and that's where it becomes a little bit more sketchy legally. But as long as like users are running it, you're just giving them a tool. I think Sudo, you might know more about that because you actually monitor these sites from your servers.
Yeah, we've actually gotten in trouble before. More a slap on the wrist than anything else, but it is a conversation that we actively talk about. There is no legislation currently in place that says that what we're doing is against the law. But that doesn't mean that a lawyer couldn't put a good case together to say that we, might have created undue wear and tear on infrastructure. We're actually, Jean-Michel DM'd me on Twitter one day and said, "Hey, you guys need to chill out with your monitors. You're currently eating up it was something like 10% of all Shopify's network traffic was from us." And he was like, "This is costing us far too much money. We're going to have to tell you guys to slow down or we need to kill it." So that day we made adjustments to try and slow some of our request volume down. It didn't fix a thing, and they hard banned I think an entire /20 block of IPs. So we were down 8,000 IP addresses at the time. And scrambled. Thank God we had friends in the proxy industries that were like, "Hey, can we borrow a 21 block from you?" And we ended up piecing it together. But it definitely happens, and these guys, if they get mad enough, they'll certainly start to take action. But outside of that, I think where it does start to touch into a gray area that nobody really talks about is when we start to find bypasses. There is definitely a line in the sand of black and white in whether or not this is something you can use or you can't use. At least in my eyes, we never use anything that is maybe like developer authentication. There are a few things that you'll find in applications or hidden in JavaScript in some places where you're like, "Ooh, that's a nice key that could get me access to these things." But we are very actively communicating about, should we use this, can we use this, and is it safe to even touch this stuff?
Yeah, as soon as you get into credentials or anything like that is where it becomes very black and white, and that you shouldn't use it because it becomes unauthorized access to a system that clearly has some sort of firewall for you to not access it with actual credentials. And how you got those credentials can be even more sketchy, which I believe has happened before in this space.
Yeah, especially in
no
the foot
names.
site space, as far as I know.
Mm-hmm.
And shout out to what bot was that? With the Adidas success. Was that Polaris or
Rip.
Yeah.
somebody?
Yeah.
Somebody used admin creds that they weren't supposed to use, and they got lit up for it.
Yeah.
There's special mode. I know the Adidas devs always joke about that, and they'll be like, "Oh, what happened to Polaris?" And just straight up like the head engineers at Adidas. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. I heard that that credential was actually, a lot of people did have access to it though, but
Depends if you use
It makes
it.
its way
depends if you use
around
it or
in
not.
DMs, but I don't think it's meant to be used on a production level like it was.
Um, let's see. I got one more question on my side, and I guess if we have time, we can try to take some questions from chat, or if you guys have any questions, and you guys in general have any questions for anybody else, feel free to ask. But what advice do you have for people who want to start to learn to code?
Build random shit. Literally just build anything and everything you find interesting. If you find bots interesting, literally just dive into it. It might be hard as hell right now, but you're going to learn so much along the way. I think most of what I've learned in terms of actual tools, like frameworks or whatever, has been just building things. A lot of my CS education teaches a lot of the fundamentals that I personally believe are very important. Some people might disagree, but I think a lot of what you learn is just hacking things together.
Yeah. A lot of trial and error. I always tell people to start off, at least in this scene, start off with a Discord bot. Like make a bot that you can run a command to get Shopify variants or something like that. Because you still have to build a bot. You still have to learn how to integrate it into a Discord server. You have to figure out some sort of HTTP request. It tends to encompass all of the things that we do here, at least to a small extent. But outside of that, yeah, just keep building shit, keep digging, and take advantage of all the open source resources out there because it's infinite.
For someone that's totally new, I actually don't really suggest like immediately trying to make a bot. I suggest buying a book. Like just pick a programming language that you think is cool, like do some background research and stick with that one language and buy some books on it. And then once you get a little bit familiar, like if the book has exercises or something like that, then try those out. But first, definitely become comfortable with your programming language.
I think a lot of people nowadays have too short of an attention span to sit down and read a book. So props to you for that, because I know most people just want to dive headfirst into things. I think a lot of like the online courses or like YouTube playlists or whatever are a pretty good replacement to that for people that prefer like visual or video stuff. But I agree, books can be full of information, but I don't know if most people are interested in that off the bat.
I think if you're not afraid of failure, you should just try and fail a lot of times, because eventually you'll figure it out and you'll start working your way up, and you don't you can't be embarrassed of asking someone for help or googling your question, because I can bet all of us googled some simple array iteration thing because we can't remember it. Most of work we do is just reusing old code and tweaking it to work for what we need.
Shout out Stack Overflow.
Yeah, I use that a lot too.
I would add to build something that you're actually interested in, and do not just try and build something to make money. You will get bored very fast if you're literally just building something to make a quick buck.
Very true.
Oh, hackathons are also awesome if you have a little bit more experience. Like my freshman year of college, we used to go to a bunch of hackathons and just put random shit together, and it was just a bunch of nerds cracking things out, eating snacks, and it was like a fun environment to learn with other people, because learning by yourself can get really taxing and boring, and you get demotivated quickly.
Speaking of boredom, if you're just starting and you're working on a project and you get bored of it and you feel like you don't want to work on it, just stop working on it, work on something else. Because when you're starting, it can really demotivate you to work on something uh, you don't have, I don't know what's the word for it. If you don't care about it, leave it.
Yeah. Yeah, motivation is important in this, to recognize the motivation in starting the project in the first place. A lot of people get into this thinking, oh man, I'm going to make $10 million selling some bot. But if you're not having fun doing it, that $10 million isn't going to be much.
I actually wanted to ask you guys like kind of like two questions that are part of one. And like it's what motivates you other than user success? Like different things throughout the day, could be like a coffee. And like what's a day in life of your work? Like what time do you wake up? Do you make yourself breakfast? Things like that.
That's a good question.
I'm not.
I've started to be a lot more consistent.
I'll answer this, but I'm not a developer. But you know, for my day of work, like I wake up every day at 9. You know, turn on my Teams, check my emails. After that, once it's on, like I'll see what meetings I have on. Um, then I'll make myself some breakfast, something like cereal, or toast, or something to eat real quick. Then while I'm making that, I'll check like my Slack or Discord to see what releases are coming up, because like that's kind of important to me. So I try to multitask that and try to work it in between my work and Then, but majority of the time I do focus my work. Then after that I do everything on the sneaker side. Then normally, I try to get finished. If I have no more meetings throughout the day, I try to hit the gym. And once I'm done with the gym, the rest of the night sit on Discord and like and figure out like what releases are next. How to properly plan everything. And because to me, like being a botter, not coming from a developer side, like being a botter and doing what I do, and like I'm pretty sure Jake and Tiana in the same way that runs like in a high scale. It gets very time consuming because one's like you have to know what bots are pushing what updates, then you have to stay consistent with it. And sometimes you have to read chat because like sometimes someone's smart enough to, give out the answer. It's like, oh, this works better than this. So sometimes I always have to use like the Discord search bar. So like I'm always searching and like,
That exists.
yeah, the Discord search bar does exist. Yeah, I use that all the
Hmm.
time because like for like I'll see like what modes you use to run on what. Because like sometimes like I don't run all my bots, and if I want to run a certain ones I see like perform very well, like I want to have to like quickly adapt to it and like understand like how to make it work. So sometimes like I'll spend till like 1 or 2 a.m. at night like figuring out what bot works, then prepare myself for like the a release upcoming the weekend or something like that. But yeah, that's my day. It's like I pretty much on my phone every day. You know, my girlfriend's okay with it, and she understands. Like one's like I have a work phone, then I have my personal phone has Discord and Slack. But I do I do stop looking at Discord or stop responding to messages like at a certain time because like I feel like I get messages like 3, 4, 5 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, dude, these people not sleep? And I'm just sitting there like, I'm just like, yeah, I'm not responding to this stuff. But like, but yeah, like I feel like if I don't have a set base schedule, like if I don't wake up at 9, like I will sleep all the way to 1 or 2 p.m. Like that's just how I am. Like I can sleep all
Easily.
day, and
Yeah, me too.
the thing is like if I don't force myself to wake up, then I'm just gonna I would still be in bed. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my day has become more structured ever since I graduated college. Before it was just kind of like based around classes, but now I have like a pretty strict schedule. Also, we have a bigger team now, so I have to be on early in the morning because, like I said, some of our developers are Europe based. So I wake up also at 9, and I try to be up and working latest by 10. Um, I find it interesting that you said the motivation thing. Coffee does motivate me a lot. I look forward to my morning coffee. But yeah, I think it's been important to have a schedule, but it's hard to do in this space where sites are constantly changing. So like one day you'll have to stay up till 3 a.m. because there's a release the next day, and then that messes up your schedule for like the whole rest of the week. And then it's hard to catch up because then there's weekend releases and all that kind of stuff. But it is important to maintain a pretty like structured schedule with a big team. If you're a solo dev, you can probably be a lot more flexible and just wake up whenever and work on what needs to get done.
Yeah. I try really hard to maintain a consistent schedule, and I think most of it revolves around my nutrition. Um, the weeks or months that I'm very focused on, like, okay, I'm gonna, cook every meal. I'm gonna make it good. I'm gonna exercise, all those things. Those force me to be more consistent because I know that abs are made in the kitchen. Um, Sleep is another one of those things that I think a lot of people don't focus on, but I think if you can optimize your sleep schedule, it will change your entire life for the rest of your life. So I try really hard now to get to bed no later than 1 a.m. Most of the time at this point, I'm in bed by like 11:30, 12, if I can be. And then I'm up by probably 8:30, 9 o'clock. I'm making coffee.
Suda, you're getting
Um,
old, bro.
yeah, it's crazy. It's necessary. I was
Going to sleep
preaching this to my
early.
younger cousins, man. It's so important, and I didn't realize it because I've always lived that life of like after college is like, okay, well, I'm gonna pick my own schedule because most of the
Yeah.
time I have worked for myself. So when I didn't have a consistent job that I had to be there at 7:30 every day or whatever, it was like, well, shit, what do I want to do today? What's exciting to me? Um, but now that I've started to get deeper into this and take it more seriously, I put a lot more emphasis on my time management and my organization. But one thing that does what motivate me to wake up every morning is my backyard. I spend a lot of time on the grass in my backyard. It's only 700 square feet, but it's my little oasis that I just like to work on. And I just like to wake up every morning and see how my grass is looking. I know that sounds crazy, but it's just a dumb little project that I get excited about now.
Personally, I don't have a specific schedule, mostly because I work in a really flexible time frame. Um, for motivation, unfortunately, burnouts in this community are familiar, especially if there are not a lot of devs. The thing that motivates me and recovers me from burnout is actually talking with friends, family, or your lover. Like it can, something they say can spark some idea for you that will help you on the job, because I can't explain it, but the way when you talk with someone and they say something, it can help you solve the issue you're having, even if they are not talking about it.
Mhm. That outside perspective is important sometimes.
Speaking of sleep, you everybody that lives on the East Coast, I hate you guys.
Yeah, that is. Thank God I'm not a morning person. So if I weren't on the East Coast, I would not survive in this community for sure.
Like I'm
You poor West Coast boys, man.
I so not coming from just coming from a bonding perspective, like West just PST or West Coast time frame sucks for botting. Like it's
Mhm.
I think Europeans get it the best, at least from the perspective of someone who needs to work on Europe and US sites. It's
Yeah,
impossible to be up for Europe drops, but if you're in Europe, US drops are just your afternoon and Europe drops are your morning, so you get all of it.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Europe is perfect for developing, but if something changes on the site day before release, it will happen mostly in US time, and by the time
Mhm.
and by the time you're woken up, everything is gone.
true.
You saying that gives
Yeah.
me flashbacks to like a time when I used to wake up. We had poor infrastructure and we would wake I remember waking up every morning, like my heart in my throat being like, is our infrastructure actually up today? And probably every other day there was some issue with it that I had to go have issues with.
That sounds exhausting.
What about you, Trickle Dev?
Um, I make my own breakfast, and that's kind of what I look forward to. But sometimes I check my phone and I see like something important. And then I come down and I start working on it, and then I actually forget to have breakfast. And then I look at the clock and it's like 4 in the afternoon. So so
Yep.
that's when I rush and I'm like, oh shoot. Uh, and I eat something and kind of get back to work. But I have a dog. Recently, I've been dog sitting, like not as a job, but one of our friends out of town. So there's actually two dogs, and they wake me up in the morning, and that's actually been helping with like staying on top of schedule, things like that. Because I like to sleep in personally.
Mm.
I
Missing
think most
anybody else?
developers are naturally lazy and we like to sleep in, but we code to make things easier.
I mean, it's not even lazy. Like, if I'm working on something and it's not complete, like even if it's already past midnight, I'm gonna continue on it until it's finished or ready.
Oh yeah.
'Cause I don't like to stop in the middle of something. Um, and then sometimes when I go to bed, it's like 3 in the morning, and then it's not that easy to wake up at 9. So I sleep in a bit.
Yeah, I think that's totally understandable. Like, so when I was, learning how to code, like time flew by so fast. Like I felt like if I started something at noon, oh, I'll already be like 9 o'clock when like I'm done, and I'm like, yo, where did all that time go? You know, like I assume you guys get like, what's that? I think there's a word for it. It's like it's when you like focus into something and like nothing else.
Flow mode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I assume that happens to you guys too a lot when you guys just like when you're just into it and like you guys kind of just forget about everything and like you just focusing doing what you have to do. Because I feel like
Yeah, it's called Vyvanse.
Vivens.
It's
Vibe.
called Adderall.
Adderall.
It's called abusing
Yeah,
stimulants.
right. Yeah, sometimes you sit down at your computer and it's 9 a.m. and then you look up and it's 4 p.m. You're like, where the fuck did the day go? But you've just been so sucked into what you're doing that you don't even realize what's happened.
I feel also working on Discord makes time go by faster because like
Yeah.
you get a bunch of DMs, like a bunch of people talking in chat. So I feel like having Discord open at certain times or like making sure it's closed while I work actually helps me. Because it is a distraction, like getting pings and stuff.
Yeah, it is.
There was a question that was asked in chat. What code does your bot run on, or your software?
I don't know if we need to go through everyone's in particular, but I know that most like people are drifting towards Golang now just because of how easy it is to mess with requests and that kind of stuff. But I know a lot of the older or more established bots like Soul, Cyber are all in like C sharp. But the go-to now, like for new bots, is always a Golang backend with an Electron like main process. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
TypeScript front end.
yep.
No P.
I'd like to point out just to flex on you guys that Guap has been Golang since day one.
Woo.
Yeah, I noticed Golang was I didn't know what Golang was till my friend told me. He was like, oh yeah, it's lightweight Google language, and he's like, whatever bot is doing that, it's gonna be like the best performing one. And then I noticed that a lot of bots slowly transitioned over to it because like handling requests, you can run more tasks, and it's not so CPU RAM intensive when you know. But then again, I don't know nothing about coding, so I just know to hit start and keep my finger crossed.
Yeah, it's just lightweight. Compiled languages are a lot more efficient, less overhead.
Yeah, I think there's no more other questions I see in chat. You guys have any questions for anybody here?
Hmm.
No. Thank you.
Another question for you, actually.
Okay.
Um, if you don't see supply changes over the next, I don't know, I guess holiday season, where do you see yourself come January 1 of 2022?
All right.
You
So
know, I think if we continue to deal with this problem and it gets worse, a lot of people are going to start dipping out.
so for me, like I tell a lot of people this, and a lot of people that don't know this. Like, I do this. I literally do this as a hobby. Like, I do sneaker as a hobby. I love it. I love it because one, it's challenging. Um, it really helped me because one, I had like a technical background, and if not having a technical background, like, you know, it didn't help a lot of people. Like, I knew that servers and proxies, all this stuff before everybody else like put in play that you need to, what to decrease ping, requests and all that stuff. But vocabulary wise, like I'm not the greatest, but technical, like on hands, like I don't know, I can just do it. And the thing is like even if this people steer away from botting and stuff like that, um, I just love helping people in general. Like I just love this community. I love giving back to this community. I notice how, I've been in this community since like 2012, back when, sneaker Twitter was actually a cook group. Like you have to follow certain people
Yeah.
in the sneaker industry, and they'll post like links. Like A Train Kicks was posting like what site was like he'll post like links to like add the carts and stuff like that. So I've been in this in this space for a while, and I've seen how much it has evolved. In my previous podcast, like I mentioned that 5 years ago, whatever information you had, like it was a need to know basis. Like I wouldn't tell you how to jig. I wouldn't tell you how to create a server.
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell you what
Yeah, for
proxy
sure.
works. And like the space now is like all the resources there. So if someone doesn't know something, someone's out there is willing to help you. Some cook group, staffs out there to help you. Some bot staffs out there to help you. And the thing is like the industry and this space is like it's a knowledge like a pool, and everybody's willing to share their knowledge. And even if it does dip and go away, I just feel like just it's a revolving cycle, and it's still. I don't think the sneaker profit or retail, will ever go away. You know,
Yeah.
there's been scalping.
There will always be low supply, high
yeah,
demand items out there.
there's been scalping before bots. People were
Right.
If you didn't wait in line, there was you pay somebody or you find something else. But like now everything's like automated online sales and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't think this space will go away. Will a lot of people leave? Yeah, I definitely agree, especially with um, people falling into the red, as in like they're buying proxies, bots, and and they're not making their money back because like right now I feel like it's very hard. The time is hard right now for botting. Coming from me is like the amount of money I spent 2 years ago for botting, and the return was crazy. The amount that I spend now and the return is like I'm just sitting there. I'm like, what? Where did all my money go?
What was the
Like,
point?
what
Yeah.
was the point? What was the point setting up? Just for
Right.
this like
Margins are getting too tight.
yeah like for example like I'll set up and I'm like I only hit 2 pairs. Like what a waste of 5 hours or 6 hours of setting up.
Right.
And
But you got the dopamine.
yeah, but I got the dopamine. I got the checkout, so I can
Got
post
that
it on
hit.
Twitter. But no, but like
Yeah.
but I love it. Like and the thing is like there's other people in the community like that don't run as hard as me that still hit more than me, and I look at them like, oh, that's crazy. Like like there's other people out there that are trying, and there's more people that coming in this industry. The thing that I do dislike is like people think that owning a bot is easy money, and
Yeah.
if you like people message me, it's like how do you just how is it so easy for you to make money? It's like, yo, it's not. It's like it's just like everything else. If you don't put your time and effort into it, like you're not gonna no there's no return. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I do see so much. I feel like I'll never leave this space. um I will only leave this space if once it becomes like illegal. Like
There you go.
like
Yeah.
it's a
I
big
can
it's
support
like a
that.
big taboo to like just do it. But like besides that,
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I won't leave this space. And I feel like the people, the thing is like 3 4 5 years ago, like I'd never network with anybody. And I feel like the downfall of me not doing that like hindered, I'm not gonna say success, but like a better friendship and
Growth.
relationship with other people.
Yeah.
And I felt like if I did that, and I noticed that a lot of younger people coming into the space, like I noticed that it helps them like networking. But the thing is, like, I also wish a lot of these younger people work on their social skills. 'Cause
Yes.
I noticed that social
Agreed.
skills and keyboard warriors are like the big thing in the community. And I just feel like me growing up. So I'm 32, and I realized that like when I came into this industry, like you always respect. If you want to show someone respect, is like the respect is always given. Like, but if someone's gonna talk shit to you, of course you're gonna get shit talked back. So that's how I was.
Mhm.
Like, I was like, if you're gonna talk shit about me, then I'm gonna talk shit about you. But then I realized like there's no point anymore. I was like, I'm just gonna ignore it. But like, I feel like I treat everybody with respect, and I just hope everybody treats me back with respect. So I just I feel like
Love it.
this industry is gonna keep going. I don't think botting sneakers is gonna go anywhere. There's always a
No.
demand. There's always sneakerheads. Just like technology and developing, like it's endless. Like it's always improving, and and everybody wants to be on top. And I feel like it's not it's fun.
Yeah, I
Once
think
a
we're
botter,
seeing.
always a botter.
Yeah.
right now we're seeing a lot of, I think someone, I don't remember who tweeted it out, but they were like, oh, it's like the sneaker Twitter cleansing or whatever. I think it's like a natural cycle, not just in this, but in a lot of other things. I mean, you saw when like crypto started up, there was like a million coins, and now, I mean, sure, there's still a lot of coins, but there's like a few actual good ones that like either have utility or like Bitcoin's like the golden standard or whatever. In a lot of these industries, when there's a lot of money to be made, a lot of people jump in, and then over time, the most the ones that are most properly implemented are going to just outlast the others. And right now, we're seeing that where a lot of people are leaving because it was easy money, and then it turned out that okay, maybe it wasn't easy as I thought. But I think over time, like you said, like it's not going to go away. I think if anything, it's just going to solidify the best products, and at the end of the day, that's the best thing for the consumer is to have the best products available and not have a million choices that you could possibly choose the wrong one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like we needed this to kind of purge out all of the leeches that have been, riding the coattails of success of all these other bots that are now like definitely seeing thinner margins and not seeing the same success, that they fall out eventually because they've always been leeches. So, yeah, I agree. I think we're going to see a big shift in this community in who stays and who maintains their foundation and who tries to adapt and can't figure it out. I'm personally battling that same thing daily with Guap and trying to decide, do we start to dig deeper in NFTs and start to monitor more of these products and offer a different line? Or do we stick to the foundation, and how do we kind of play that out right to make the numbers make sense? But it's an interesting conversation nonetheless.
I think the other interesting thing about this year's quote unquote cycle, like you said, this has been like an interesting year that, yeah, we've seen this cycle before. The difference I'm seeing this time around is that there's a lot of quote unquote OGs leaving the space. It's not just the new guys that came in. So I'm interested to see how that's going to play out with a lot of the more established companies or just people in this space in general leaving, whereas in the past they've just stuck through the wave and stuck through the cycle and kept going. I think we're seeing a wave of a lot of new, well-established products. I mean, obviously, we can see Trickle came up recently and has just dominated. So it's not just the OGs sticking through the wave. I think there's a lot of new ones that have been good and come out of this hype.
Yeah, absolutely. The gold will definitely shine in this one.
Yeah, I'm actually waiting for the end of the year to see what this recap of like the what was it when Supreme was big, like there was like 20,000 Supreme bots, and like I noticed that retail and Amazon, like it's kind of happening, but then again, like it's kind of weeding out the weak, like only certain ones are working now. Oh,
Right.
look
Was I rambling?
look who just showed up. Oh, but yeah, it's kind of weeding out the weak, and I feel like I'm not gonna say natural selection, but like it's kind of that.
It is.
Close to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's kind of that. And the thing is, like, I feel like a lot of these younger developers that come into the space with newer minds, like, I feel like where do they come up with this stuff? Type of deal, like like this space is so what's that word, like intervative, like I can't sorry, I don't know the word, but like they just always coming up with new things, and I feel like it's never
Innovative.
innovative, yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's
Yeah.
I don't know, it's crazy. Like I don't know, I give props to all the developers out there, and bro, everybody works hard, and I feel like sometimes a lot of users don't appreciate your guys' product that you guys put out for us, and it's to me like I appreciate all the developers out there, and like like it takes time to develop something, to establish a company, establish a user base and stay around, and and deal with all our bullshit. Hey, your bot doesn't work. Oh, it's because I used your wrong keyword or something like that. But I really love you guys, and thank you for the stuff you guys put out for us, and I hope you guys stay around for a while, all you guys, and
As long as I can.
yeah, I just hope no exit scams or anything from anybody else. I really dislike that about the community, but you know, but but I know that
It happens.
you know it happens. But so we have Rambling with us.
Yeah, I'm sick right now, so I just woke up from my nap.
Uh, you want to give a little quick introduction about yourself?
Yeah,
As
so
we are.
I'm a developer at Akari. Um, I basically just work on retail sites. I've been around for this community for a few years now. Kind of got into developing with bot scripts, kind of. Um, Funny enough, I actually got Zenny scripts to Zenny to make Zenny scripts with one of my first ever tools I made. Yeah, it was a little fun ride.
You guys cool if I you know give Rambling a quick rundown of all the questions we had
Go for it.
for you guys all left. So what was the first coding language you learned?
Oh, you just started asking me all the questions?
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask you them all.
The first one
Rapid
I
fire.
learned was like Visual Basic.
Oh, that was not
Visual
fun.
Basic was an interesting one. Yeah,
How
I
old
was
were
in an
you?
entirely different.
Yeah, how old were you when you
So,
learned?
sorry to
Ah.
interrupt, but I'll have to leave you all. Thank you for having me on this podcast. It was pleasure talking with you all. But unfortunately, it's getting late, so I have to go. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Elm.
Yeah, I
for
gotta head out too.
Thanks,
So
Elm.
thank you so much for hosting.
Yep.
Let's see you guys.
Yeah, whoever has to
Yeah,
head
me
out,
as well.
feel-
I gotta head out.
Yeah.
But Justin, thanks for putting this together, man.
No
This was
problem.
really fun.
Yeah, thank you.
So how old were you when you started to learn how to code, Rambling?
I would like to say 10 or younger. I mean, I have my GitHub I
Crazy.
can check.
10.
Used to, I think it was like, let me see, 2016?
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Hey Pseudo, you can leave if you want to.
I'm just hanging out. I gotta go make dinner though, so I just wanted to say thank you and I appreciate the time.
No problem, man.
This has been fun. We should do more of these.
Of course, I'm trying to you know bring some new stuff to the space, because like I said before, like I kind of watch Twitch and I like noticed like you know a lot of those Twitch guys like kind of have panels with like multiple people and asking like random stuff. So like
Mhm.
I felt like you know this community kind of needed something like this. So
Yeah, no, I think it's good insight and people clearly seem to enjoy it. I mean, you've had a consistent 30 people watching this at least, which is far more than I typically see on sneaker streams. So
yeah,
keep it up.
yeah. I mean, if they watch it, they watch it. But I feel like the information's there and when they want to watch it later when I post on YouTube. But yeah, but I really
I think
appreciate you
YouTube's a
guys
good platform.
being here.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you,
Well,
Pseudo. Take care.
I appreciate it. Take it easy.
All right. 10. Oh, that's pretty young. So
I feel bad I'm like the only one here now.
no, you're good. We'll just finish these out real quick. So how do you guys come up with bot names, and is there any meanings behind it?
See, I really have not. It was either just like just random names I would think of, right?
Mhm.
Kind of like how my username was. It was just you kind of just go after like random like dictionary type names, right?
Yeah.
I think that's like the best way to go around bots. So it make it something memorable. If it's something that it's in the dictionary, people can say it, right?
Yeah.
It's there's no issue with that or anything else.
Yeah, that's understandable. Because I know when Pseudo was like, oh, he wanted to choose something was like a 2-letter word for like guap and something like just rolls off your tongue and like it's easy to
Yeah.
say.
If you have like a bunch of numbers and all that, then it gets really confusing.
Understandable. What made you choose to work in the sneaker or in the retail botting industry?
It really wasn't it was just I guess the prospect of like seeing like people get 100 clips.
Mhm.
I didn't really expect to do this, not in a million years.
Mm.
It was yeah, no, it was just seeing people hit like these big clips on like just shoes, right? So I was like, oh shoot, I want to do this.
Yeah.
I can help people get like this amount, then like that'd be really cool. And I just kind of learned from there. I mean,
So when you see people use your you know your software and product or whatever you put out, you know you feel it makes you feel good when like you see people hit big clips and stuff, correct?
yeah,
So your user
easily.
base kind of
It's like
reflects on your work.
I think also just kind of like making new stuff too,
Mhm.
like finding out like bypass and all that also just is really fun.
Yeah.
It brings like a new like sense of like excitement.
You cut out. You sense of
Oh, I said brings like a new sense of excitement.
okay.
Yeah.
Do you bot yourself? Like, do you run any
Ah,
bots or?
not anymore, dude.
Mhm.
I used to. Like, I think the last time I ran was like a Yeezy supply. It was Yeezy Day.
Mm.
Literally, like last time I truly bought it. And I like rented out bots,
Okay.
bought proxies, emails, all that.
Yeah, because with the other devs that were here, they were like, they say they don't have time because they have to busy focusing on monitoring whatever's releasing, then have to push like a quick fix or etc. I assume that's the same way to you when it comes to for you with your software, correct?
Yeah, pretty much. It's you don't have really much time anymore.
um, so let's say hypothetically you get a chance to work with any other company in the sneaker industry. Who would it be and why?
This is gonna sound weird. I would rather work at the anti-bot companies. I think that'd be pretty fun.
The anti-bot companies? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Uh,
mean,
I think most of the other devs over here they mentioned cyber as
yeah,
an
cyber is kind of like thinking of like Apple, right?
yeah.
Like it's established, it's been working, it's all that.
Um, do you work? Yeah, are you a full time student or do you have work outside of this sneaker community?
I don't work outside of this sneaker community. I've gotten job offers outside of it,
So speaking of
but
that, if you had a chance, like, where would you like to work?
I didn't think it's the same thing as earlier. But anti-bot companies would
Anti-bot.
be really fun because I mean the idea of like finding out like new ways people can't solve.
Hmm.
Like you look at Easy Supply, right? They were changing around like names if you had a bad Akamai cookie.
Hmm.
I think that's really cool and fun to do.
Speaking of that, what site do you hate working on?
If out of like every site will like be the most painful.
Yeah. Which one?
Probably like any fucking shape site.
Any
If
shape
you were to
site?
actually like fully do request based
Mm-hmm.
to reverse shape,
Yeah.
like I'll give it an X for like doing it. But he was also like up till he was up for like 17 hours
Oh,
doing it.
wow.
Like no sleep, no eating.
Dang.
Like it was painful for him.
That's crazy. So what kind of motivates you when you do work on stuff like this?
Um, making something really cool, right?
Mhm.
It's something I can put in the hands of people and they can make money. I think that's the cool part about it is everyone can make money here. It's not very hard to.
Yeah.
You especially with what we're doing, it's like you just run specific tags and like you're hitting on like Amazon. I think that's really cool and not many people have seen that before.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Do you have any advice for people who want to learn to code?
Uh don't look at all these like request based bots and like do request stuff first. You need to learn like the basics. I'm kind of bad for like finding out like beginning and stuff because I come from a family. My
Mhm.
dad's a programmer,
Mm.
a senior programmer, so like I kind of inherited that from him. But I kind of learned from like Stack Overflow, which is very bad to do. But I think in the beginning you should just go through really if you want to just go through the coding language documents and just like kind of see what they're doing from like most common stuff. Search up like what people are doing. Maybe try like search up like for a project to do, and then search up what you need for that project
Yeah,
and
because
stuff like that.
some of the devs earlier said they use Stack Overflow, but for example, Elm, he was here. Um, he actually learned how to code from San Andreas, like GTA. Like so like just stuff like that. And so Elm was from Bosnia, so like he tried to code in his native language, and he realized that it doesn't work out like that. That
Yeah.
everything is like has to be in English. So
Yeah, I think it's kind of crazy though. Everything's in English for coding.
yeah. Um, if you don't mind me asking, what language is Akarian?
Golang.
Golang? Yeah, I noticed
Yeah.
that a lot of bots have transitioned over to Golang because it's easier to build requests off of it, correct?
It's really nice, like and quick.
Hmm.
It. I mean, it's mixture of C++, and it just feels. I forget the other language right now, but
Yeah, because
it feels nice.
yeah, you
to
weren't here
use.
earlier, but I told them like when I was in high school, I learned how to do C++, and like I did not want to learn how to code after that because like
Oh yeah, C++. I will not touch that.
yeah,
And
when I learned C++, I was like, I had to go through every single line to figure out what I actually did wrong. Then like 6 years, like 5 years later, my friend introduced me to Python. I was like, bro, Python tells you exactly what you're doing wrong. Like it
yeah,
highlights it for you. And I'm like, why couldn't C++ do that for me? Like, when 5 years ago in 2000, 2005 for me. So that was,
I've always hated C++ because I could not find out how to print a line. It kind of
yeah.
traumatized me.
Do you think the sneaker industry or just the body industry right now is it's dying?
Um, I don't think so. You're still having people like run bots. I mean, it would be like no bots are running on any sites, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like the type of point where we're dead. It's like these sites aren't dropping like 10,000 stock. They're dropping like 1,000.
Correct.
Like they're just dropping a lot less stock, and bots aren't hitting as much anymore. I think that'd be kind of more towards the end of
Correct.
botting. I mean, you can still run foot sites. You can still run Shopify.
Mhm.
No one's stopping you there. They still drop.
Correct.
Bots still hit on them. So
So this question is more like, I didn't ask this to anybody else, but this is kind of more directed towards you. So like when Amazon botting came out, pretty like everybody kind of jumped on it, and for me, coming from a botter, I noticed majority of those bots performance have decreased a lot, and Akari's, the only one that I noticed like has stayed consistent. Do you think there's a reason behind that?
um I don't want to take jabs at any other bots because they do their work, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to downput any bots. I think it's just Amazon's been or not even Amazon. I think it's just some of the endpoints these guys are using are probably like only work for like a good amount of people.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have too many on it, then it just doesn't work as well anymore. I think that was kind of a thing that we've seen in the past with some other types of things. It's the more people you have on it, the less it works. I think, but we've uh, I caught up my words, but
Yeah.
we thought this for Akari, but like we're at like a good user base from what we had in beta, and people are still hitting the same amount, even more now. So it's
Yeah, I noticed that because like I think before, like I didn't have any Amazon bots, and someone one of the botters named Sushi told me to pick up Akari, so I did. But I noticed that once I picked up Akari, like I noticed like how saturated Viper was, how saturated eStock was, and all that stuff, and I noticed like their performance like dropped dramatically, after a couple months, and like while Akari was in beta, like I noticed like everybody was hitting clips, and that was like really amazing to me, especially like it wasn't
yeah.
like, I don't know, I just thought it was like, wow, man, it's like you guys are doing something that like those other Amazon bots aren't doing. Like you guys are doing something right. So I thought that was pretty cool, and especially like you guys are consistently adding new sites, consistently updating.
Yeah, we have sites down the road. We're just kind of solidifying now.
Oh yeah,
Akari's been a bitch for me.
funny thing is like I saw them pop up when I was in the app data, and I was like, I haven't seen these sites on the thing yet. I'm pretty sure they're gonna add these soon.
Whoa, wait a second. You shouldn't be seeing certain.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, I'm just telling you, it shows up on app data, so
under what?
uh
Oh, under cookies. Oh
yeah,
no, you're thinking of like most of these sites in BH Photo we were having while we were making it.
okay,
It got clipped while we were making the
okay.
Golang
Oh, so
versions.
all that
So
stuff under cookies, like that's what you guys were gonna work on. You just like chose.
yeah, it's
Okay,
maybe down the line.
okay, yeah,
Who knows? But
yeah,
BH Photo's been clipped for a while.
okay, yeah. So I saw that. So I wasn't sure. I was like, oh, maybe you guys are adding this or that, but oh,
It doesn't have a new site that I was looking at. So that's good.
I did get this question a lot from a lot of my friends personally. You guys plan to add Amazon Canada by any chance?
Yeah, he's looking into that. More of these other regional sites would be
Mm-hmm.
nice. I think maybe Walmart's here. I don't know. I'll just Walmart.
Okay. Yeah, because
That'd be more
the
on
funny
him.
thing is like, so like a lot of my friends like that were like are Canadian based. They're like, ask Akari when they're gonna add Amazon, CA, because like I guess like there's no good Amazon CA bot. So so yeah, that's pretty cool. Um um oh yeah, there's another question. What do you think of what about the legal and ethics side of developing a gray area software product?
This is something that you kind of have seen in the past. I mean, it's already been like kind of brought up in court.
Mhm.
Like it's close enough to ticket scalping. It might happen at some point
Yeah,
that this all goes. But you're not having that many people complain. It's a very small portion of the people that complain.
correct.
And Nike makes enough money they could not care
Yeah.
about 10,000 of like a million shoes getting botted, right?
Correct.
Well, you had like these ticket companies. It was literally all their tickets getting botted, and they didn't have many people that were getting it like manually, and they'd have to pay for resale, and people were pissed about that.
I just think the thing that was like for the tickets, like it doesn't just affects more than one thing. So affects is like uh affects the event where it's held, as in like the Coliseum or whatever, where it's hosted, because one, they make money off of the people that show up, and if
Yeah,
tickets are if the tickets are getting botted and not getting sold, like they can't sell their $10 water bottle to you, and to make money.
yeah. If all the tickets are $1,000, no one's gonna buy it.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so yeah, I feel like it hasn't hit there, or it hasn't like been, it's I don't feel like it's gonna get. Scalping's
Yeah,
been around forever, so I feel like it's not gonna happen.
yeah. No doubt about that. It's
Yeah,
some are called scalpers for like
correct.
PlayStations and Xboxes.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, it kind of sucks that you weren't here with everybody else, so you could like,
Yeah, I
interact.
did it, but I've been sick this whole week.
No,
It's
that's
yeah.
understandable, but like I really appreciate able to show up. Yeah, I think that's pretty majority all the questions I have asked. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't come in with any like ones written out
No, no, you
at
don't.
all. So yeah,
You're good, but yeah, but rambling. I really appreciate you showing up. I would definitely gonna invite you to another one to
all right.
to interact with you a little bit more. But yeah, there was a bunch of people that didn't show up. Like Walmart was supposed to show up, Pristine, Tendency.
I don't know what's happening with Tencent. He has not been active in a little bit.
No, he said he's been busy with school, so
Oh, okay,
yeah.
yeah, I understand that.
So I'm definitely gonna do another one with devs, but like yeah,
Yeah,
I'm definitely gonna bring you back, and would definitely love to hear like more of your
yeah, I'll be good by then.
yeah, fingers crossed. Well, thank you, Rambling,
Hey,
for showing up,
all right.
and also thank you for since everybody left already, but thank you to all those people who are tuning in, and thank you for all the other devs. You know, if you didn't hear me earlier, Rambling, like I really appreciate all the things you guys do, especially the devs. You guys put in a lot of hard work in your guys' product, and you guys are consistently updating, and like
Yeah,
you don't understand like you, you how much I appreciate the work you guys do for us, and especially in the
yeah. Thank
community.
you.
So thank you very much, man, and thank you for everybody who's tuning in. Hope everybody has a wonderful day. Thank you, Rambling.
I'll see you.